When Aaron sits down, we'll start. Good morning to all of you. Welcome to this Christmas season. I would like to start out by thanking Sarah and Scott for that wonderful party last evening. Thank you again.
The band was really good as well.
Yeah, it's that music. After everyone left, the music started.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you, Sarah. Be sure to extend that to Scott. With the reorganization, we all know that we have new regional administrators. I know some are present. Would you please rise? Welcome. You have a very, very important role in this new organization, and we appreciate you. Look forward to it. Would you like to start?
I would be happy.
Call on our very capable and able director, Sarah.
All right, well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, and good morning to all who could join us both here in the auditorium and then those online as well. So since this is our last commission meeting of the year, I also tend to do a year in review. And so the next few slides are going to be just some of the highlights of much of the work that we have been doing this past year. And as the commission already knows, it has been a very busy one. So you'll note there's a few agents in the crowd today, and there's good reason for that, which is coming up on the agenda, but it really represents so much of the enforcement efforts that have been going on this past year. I'm going to start, though, just by the success in the 2019 legislative session for finally getting the poaching bill across the finish line. And so a huge shout out to Mr. Aaron Jeffries and the work that he did, and of course the sponsors, or the bill sponsors as well, but for getting this very important piece of legislation through. It is my hope that with this continued support of the public who cares so much about the wildlife resources of the state and this important piece of legislation, that we will see a reduction in poaching activity that seems far too often to be occurring in our state. Here's an example. Throughout the month of October, conservation agents working near Lake of the Ozarks responded to multiple complaints of dead deer with only heads, tenderloins, and other parts removed. Thankfully, just one call to Operation Game Thief Hotline ultimately led investigators to a suspect who now faces a litany of charges in Miller and Shannon counties. Conservation agents are investigating a dead cow elk that was shot near the end of M Highway near Van Buren in Carter County on November the 18th. By the time the dead cow was found by conservation agents, unfortunately, the meat was no longer salvageable for donation. Very sadly, this is the 6th elk poached in Missouri this year, and this negative impact to the herd's population will be a factor as we make a final decision as to whether we can move forward with an elk season in 2020 as we had originally planned. As you are aware, and we see Tyler Schwartz in the crowd today of Conservation Federation, we're so appreciative of their efforts and now offering $20,000 in a reward through Operation Game Thief for the first conviction related to these elk poaching cases. So something I know the commission is very focused on as well. We've also seen a spike in poaching cases related to the use of infrared and night vision equipment. As this equipment becomes more readily available to the public, we've seen an increase in its illegal use. Though challenging to catch violators in the act, we have been able to catch some poachers using infrared or night vision scopes. Since November of 2018, conservation agents have made 11 cases for unlawful possession of night vision thermal imagery while in possession of any firearm, bow, or other implement whereby wildlife could be killed or taken. Prior to that, the average was about 1 or 2 cases a year. So this is an unfortunate trend that we are seeing. In addition to the poaching investigations, conservation agents stayed busy with working a number of timber theft cases, wildlife code enforcement, and general community policing activities. And we were thrilled to welcome 11 conservation agent graduates to the MDC family this past year, and they have all hit the ground running, assisting with another very busy fall hunting season. Recently, Lawrence County Conservation Agent Andy Barnes received the 2019 Missouri State Employee Award of Distinction in the Public Service category. The Public Service category winner is honored for outstanding dedication to the advancement of state service, which enhances the quality of life for Missouri citizens. It honors accomplishments that are above and beyond the employee's normal job responsibilities. Barnes earned his honor for his work in 2018, which was a very busy one and a productive one for him. The highlight came in December when sentencings in both Barton County Circuit Court and Lawrence County Circuit Court culminated in a multi-year, multi-jurisdictional investigation into the poaching activities of one particular family and their accomplices. Barnes was the lead investigator, one of the lead investigators on this case, so a huge congratulations to Andy Barnes. We also this past year celebrated the 75th anniversary of our modern deer hunting season. It's always good to remember that we've come a very long way, members of the commission. Habitat loss and unregulated hunting decimated Missouri's native wild-tailed deer numbers to mere hundreds by the 1930s. Deer were mostly limited to small herds in the Ozarks when the voter-approved and newly formed Missouri Conservation Commission closed deer season in 1937. Then the real work of restoration began. Staff found this particular map to the left in the Missouri Archives that shows the estimated deer population in 1941. And research suggests that some of our highest harvest counties today, such as Texas, Callaway, Macon, Adair, St. Clair, and Henry, didn't even have deer in 1941. In 1944, the newly created Department of Conservation held the first modern deer season with about 7,700 hunters harvesting 519 bucks during a 2-day bucks-only season in only 20 counties. MDC's ongoing conservation efforts in partnership with landowners, hunters, and others have certainly brought deer numbers back. Missouri now has more than 1 million deer throughout the state and about 500,000 deer hunters harvesting tens of thousands of deer annually. We know that deer hunting helps boost business in Missouri communities by more than $1 billion annually while supporting wonderful family hunting traditions and providing food for many as well. This year, deer hunters in Missouri harvested 178,936 deer during the November portion of fall firearms deer season alone. Oops. I'm moving too fast. Of course, we have to hit our CWD mandatory sampling weekend as there was much going on throughout our state. Let's start with our call center. The call center received 2,351 calls, with just over 1,000 of the total calls focused on hunter education questions. As we stood up the call center, we were delighted to have Governor Parsons stop by to see all of our call center folks in action. We were able to reduce the number of counties within our CWD management zone to just 29 this year, and I continue to be just so impressed with the amazing work that staff does and how much they're able to accomplish during this particular weekend, including all of the data processing that goes on to QA/QC the samples. Thank you to Commissioner McHenry and Harrison for taking the time to visit some of those stations with us. This was no small undertaking with more than 18,800 samples collected over the 2-day period. And in the spirit of continuous improvement each year, we've been able to reduce the time it takes to deliver these sample results. This year, nearly 6,000 results were available to hunters within 1 week. So that's incredibly impressive. Continue to show great improvement in that regard. This last year, we certainly saw devastation from floods and tornadoes, and after dealing with the impacts of the 2019 tornado and flooding activities, we have completed the damage assessments and repairs on most of our conservation areas are well underway. However, there are a handful of conservation areas like Columbia Bottom, Marie Tim Claire, Eagle Bluffs, and Bob Brown, where the flood damage is much more extensive. At these locations, we're taking a more thoughtful approach to how we proceed with the repairs. The extremely wet year made for also a very tough construction season as several large projects were delayed due to the high water, flooding, and wet conditions. One of these projects, where our deputies took a little side trip to meet with staff and apparently had quite a bit of fun. If you see that picture of Deputy Batson Warren, I'm not sure what was going on there, but in early November, Jennifer, Mike, and Aaron toured Columbia Bottom Conservation Area with regional staff to assess the most recent flood damage. The area, as you know, commissioners, has been pummeled, it's almost annually now, by flooding on the Missouri and Mississippi rivers. Parts of the area are buried in 2 to 6 feet of sediment. There are 7 levee breaches there and severe damage to interior roads. And at Confluence Point, staff have tried to make the most of a situation where the walkway and viewing platform were heavily damaged. As a result of the severe damage, staff are developing a new management plan that will help minimize future flood damage to the area, so there is more to come on this important project. We also celebrated the opening of the new Perry Shooting Range this year, which was open to the public on October the 9th. A small celebration was well attended by members of the public, the state legislature, and of course staff. The public has already been enjoying this new range, and construction plans are being developed for decommissioning the old range next summer. Providing the public with facilities where they can practice their shooting skills at their own pace is a wonderful way to help connect them with the out of doors. And of course, Shoal Creek. We were happy to finally officially open the doors to visitors at Shoal Creek Conservation Education Center in Joplin. We did that this September after completing about a year's worth of structural and exhibitory updating. We know how important Shoal Creek, our nature centers, and other facilities are to the communities that they serve, and so a huge thank you to staff who helped make this happen. They put a ton of work into renovating the facility for the grand opening, cleaning up the grounds, and working with some very passionate volunteers and community members in the Joplin area. You know we have to hit this topic. Staff and partners have done a tremendous job eliminating more than 9,200 hogs from Missouri's landscape between January and the end of November. Their efforts in dealing with this conservation challenge have been incredibly valuable to the effort to protect our habitat and the wildlife resources of the state. On Saturday, Missouri took another very positive step forward in the fight to eliminate these invasive critters when the U.S. Forest Service announced the immediate prohibition of hunting feral hogs on public land in the Mark Twain National Forest. With the Forest Service closure of feral hog hunting in the Mark Twain, they also announced the allowance of opportunistic take of feral hogs in the Mark Twain during all deer and turkey hunting seasons, starting immediately. Only those hunters with an unfilled permit in compliance with the permit conditions may take hogs. With this announcement, and under your direction, Commission, administration will be proposing regulation changes identical to the Forest Service regulation. This will ensure consistency of feral hog regulations on the Forest Service and MDC managed lands by allowing for opportunistic take of feral hogs during all deer and turkey seasons. I do want to point out the distinction that while the Forest Service announcement became effective immediately on the Mark Twain and will apply to the remaining 2019-2020 deer hunting season, this change will not be in place for the 2019-2020 alternative methods on MDC lands and for archery hunting season on MDC lands. The MDC proposal will need to make its way through the state's regulatory process, which includes a formal public comment period on the rulemakings, but should be available for deer and turkey seasons next fall. An important reminder that the prohibition of hunting on public lands does not apply to private lands where landowners may hunt or shoot feral hogs on their lands. So Brian Canaday, we quoted you, of course, on this one. Every day is a good day for fishing in Missouri. I don't think a day goes by that we don't hear that. And it's true. But this year might have been the year of the fish. We celebrated the 50th anniversary of our St. Louis Urban Fishing Program, where we provide close-to-home fishing opportunities within the metropolitan setting. Staff recently completed the winter trout stocking across the state, and we recorded 13 state record fish this year, including the 40-pound, 4 ounces brown trout caught on Lake Taneycomo, and the 10-ounce white perch caught on the Osage River earlier this month. In addition, Bryant Rackers of Bonnets Mill claimed his 4th state record. So there's definitely a lot of excitement in the water for our anglers. And I even hear tell that the Cape Nature Center may even have a Year of Fish Christmas tree. A lot to celebrate there. The end of October brought the close of another very successful trout season at our 4 trout parks. As with any year, this season had its share of challenges with multiple high water events and the challenge of having Roaring River out of production due to much needed renovation. Still, daily tags sold during the 2019 trout season totaled 386,373. Certainly want to highlight some of the regulation changes that we've seen this year. Over the last year, staff have worked with partners and citizens to gather input on regulation changes related to permit restructuring, crappie regulations on Smithville and Wapapello lakes to provide better quality fishing, refined CWD management zones based on the latest research on deer movement, and deer carcass regulations to minimize the spread of CWD. Staff also held several open houses to gather input on CWD management zones, elk hunting season, the black bear management plan, and of course, conservation area management plans.
Sarah, are the tallies in on CWD positive results compared to prior years this year?
We do have, I believe we're up to 23 positives, and so opening weekend last year, I believe, was 33 positive, so we're down a bit, which I think is good in the way of how we are responding to this disease.
Is that a final number?
It is not. We still have a few samples to go, and of course, continue to get samples from taxidermists, and we'll get them, through the end of the year, but we'll be reporting out on final positives to the commission. Conservation planning tools for Missouri communities. MDC recently received the 2019 Outstanding Public Outreach Project Tool or Community Initiative Award from the Missouri chapter of the American Planning Association. This award was given to recognize this particular publication, which has been authored by MDC Community Conservation Planner Rhonda Burnett. It is a fantastic guidebook for community planners and private developers, and in addition to containing technical information on planning processes and sources of useful data, it also contains case studies from Missouri communities and other states demonstrating just how to strengthen those connections to nature for communities. So we know that this will be a valuable tool, certainly is now and in the years to come. Early this year, we awarded the 61st Master Conservationist Award to Dr. Grant Woods of Reed Spring for his lifelong, really, work towards the management of whitetail deer and his belief in the hunting culture as a vital tie to wildlife conservation. So this prestigious award was first presented in 1942, and it honors living or deceased citizen conservationists, former MDC commissioners, and employees of conservation-related agencies, universities, or organizations who have made substantial and lasting contributions to the state's fisheries, forestry, and wildlife resources, including conservation law enforcement and conservation education-related activities. So, congratulations to Dr. Woods. A recent study from prominent bird researchers in the U.S. and Canada, including Cornell Lab of Ornithology, found that North America has lost nearly 3 billion birds in the last 50 years, and those declines are also occurring here in Missouri. Over the past year, MDC has been working with the Forest Service, with Regional Bird Conservation, the Regional Conservation Group Joint Ventures, the Missouri River Bird Observatory, and other land management agencies and organizations to develop the Missouri Bird Conservation Plan. This plan will be a fantastic tool for us, and it's been created to help reverse the dwindling bird populations by focusing statewide conservation efforts across agencies and organizations toward these shared goals. The plan outlines the state's most threatened bird species and their level of statewide concern, their land management needs, and the threats to the species and their habitats. So with this information, all of the partners can work together to enhance breeding habitats for these priority bird species. There are roughly 335 bird species that commonly occur in Missouri. Of that number, 29 are included in this plan. The list includes the eastern meadowlark, prairie warbler, northern bobwhite, eastern whippoorwill, and the red-headed woodpecker. Many thanks to Ms. Sarah Kendrick, to Rudy Martinez, and others who have been involved with the technical and outreach sections of the bird plan. We know we will need the public's help on implementation of this very important plan. Governor's Award for Innovation. Earlier this year, our Discover Nature Schools program was awarded the Governor's Award for Innovation. The passion the team put into developing this first-in-the-nation comprehensive science program was a tremendous hit, and it was such an honor to see them recognized for their hard work and dedication. The Discover Nature Schools program began in 2006, first as just a sixth grade science unit. Today, it has now grown into a pre-K through 12 grade program that implements Missouri-focused nature education in 90% of state school districts. It's very significant. The Discover Nature Schools team has partnered with the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to meet the Missouri learning standards. Speaking of schools, of course, had to stick a slide in about the nature school. Thanks to the generosity of Hank Waters and Vicki Russell, we partner with Columbia Public Schools to provide area students, county-wide students, an opportunity to experience place-based learning at the soon, hopefully to the efforts soon to start for the building of the Columbia Nature School, which will be located on a unit of Three Creeks Conservation Area. Just last week, our staff participated in a design charrette with partners, and so we're very excited to see the groundbreaking of the Nature School. Have to talk about the importance of partnerships and all that's gone on this past year. We cannot do our conservation work alone, and we could spend much more time highlighting the many efforts that we do every day with our partners. But I will just mention our Partners Roundtable. We saw more than 200 partners this year at our roundtable in October. They joined us to discuss the value of healthy lands, waters, and partnerships. And we continue to thank our partners at the Missouri Conservation Heritage Foundation for their support and dedication to keeping conservation relevant. I see Ms. Tricia back there from the foundation. Thank you, Tricia, to you and your team. Everything from assisting with the MONAS State Tournament to the Lewis and Clark Award ceremony to Conservation Day at the ballpark. Foundation is always busy in making sure we're making those connections and increasing the relevance of conservation statewide. A shout out to those who've been so involved in our private land work, and thanks to the hard work of staff, we recently signed an agreement with the Missouri Soybean and Corn Growers Association to fill a very important cooperative position. The new position will use the producer networks to promote the integration of conservation on cropland. We also signed an agreement with MU Extension. They'll be using their producer networks to promote native grass integration into grazing systems and grassland conservation opportunity areas and quail restoration landscapes on the western side of the state. Extension plans to hold 3 native warm season grass workshops this winter with the help of our MDC staff. And of course, Audubon Conservation Ranching. We also collaborated with the cattlemen from Missouri and Kansas and Audubon International with local chefs and retailers for the Conservation Ranching Workshop recently in Kansas City. Kansas City is a pilot market for Audubon's targeted regional market development approach that aims to empower metro consumers as conservation change makers. Conservation-conscious consumers can help achieve lasting benefits for certified ranches, prairie birds, pollinators, and of course, our shared ecosystems. And thank you, Commissioner McHenry, for joining me at that particular workshop. It's a great one. A shout out to our all of the work that has gone in to delivering excellent customer service to the public through the use of technology, especially our IT team. The auto renewal permit system, we launched that in June, and 30,857 unique individuals had already enrolled, representing 47,404 permits by the end of November. Nearly 3/4 of those used their mobile devices to enroll in the auto renewal permit program as they were purchasing their permits for the year. What about our online apps? As of November 30, we've seen a total of 161,965 downloads of our mobile apps. Nearly 82,000 downloads of Mo Hunting, followed by about 46,000 downloads of Mo Fishing, close to 30,000 downloads of Mo Outdoors, and approximately 4,500 downloads for the Missouri ConMag. So folks are really utilizing those online apps. Not only does the public use our technology, they're also very interested in hearing and sharing the conservation education messages our dedicated staff have to share. And we're constantly tracking the media valuation in dollars and reach. And we hit a record these past 2 weeks, including a $4.9 million valuation in our media coverage. So it's a combination of hard work of our communications team through news releases, media work, social media, and website content, which is often pulled for examples here of these media stories. And over the past 2 weeks, some of the top stories have involved the elk poaching, the most recent elk poaching, the story about a female deer with antlers, another one about an albino deer, and of course the bald eagle that was shot and injured. So, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned it at the beginning, a lot going on this past year with implementing our organizational roadmap. So much work has gone in by so many in this room and beyond related to ensuring that we are prepared for the future as an agency. And so you've heard it before, but I'm going to make just some of the announcements that we've followed through on or implemented in the last couple of months. In October, we announced Brian Canaday as a leader for our statewide resource management efforts. John Tuttle, it's hard to say John Tuttle, I always want to say Johnny Tuttle, but either way, it's good. Mr. Johnny Tuttle will serve as the Assistant Deputy for Resource Management. We recently identified the 4 new statewide resource management branch section chiefs that will serve Brian Canaday in the new statewide resource management branch, and so I'm proud to announce the 4 new section chiefs. Bruce Dreckjaw, Fisheries Section Chief. Mr. Bruce Dreckjaw, stand on up. Justine Gardner, Forestry Section Chief. Justine, are you in the room? Joel Porath, Wildlife Section Chief. Norman Murray, Natural Resource Planning Section Chief. Congratulations to our new section chiefs. In November, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, we announced our new regional administrators, but I'll go ahead and announce their names by region, and so please stand when I announce you. For Central Region, Mr. Kevin Borsinko. Ms. Deb Burns for the Kansas City region. Danny Hartwig for the Northeast region. Brian Gregg for the Northwest region. Sarah Medlock, Ozark region. Tony Jaco, Southeast region. Max Alliger, Southwest region. Julie Stone, St. Louis region. Again, congratulations to our new regional administrators. So you'll notice in this particular pictures, Mr. Jeffries is missing in action. I'm sure he was once again afield chasing quail. And while some of us were working, we also welcomed Jake Buxton. We also welcome Jake Buxton. Jake, would you stand on up as our new legislative liaison starting December the 1st? Thank you. So, next to last slide, just have to give a shout out to our own Lisa Allen. Is Lisa, are you here? There she is. I won't make you stand. But what a remarkable career, and we're celebrating later today Lisa's retirement, but just wanted to take a moment, Mr. Chairman, just to recognize Lisa for her service to the Department of Conservation in the state of Missouri. After 35 years with the department, you think about that, some in this room are not even 35 years old, not to make you feel too old. But her retirement, well-deserved. She began her MDC career as an assistant resource forester in Poplar Bluff in 1984. She was promoted to resource forester in Columbia in 1988. She resumed her MDC career as forestry field program supervisor for urban and community forestry after taking a break to pursue her master's degree. Lisa was promoted to forest management chief in 1998. Then was promoted to private land section division chief in 2003. In March 3rd, 2006, she accepted a transfer back to Forestry Division to become the 8th state forester in the history of the department. She was recognized as the Conservation Federation of Missouri's Conservationist of the Year in 2008. She has held many leadership positions in the Missouri chapter of the Society of American Foresters, including election as a National Fellow and the recipient of the 2011 Carcagni Award. Most recently, she has served as chair of the National Association of State Foresters, addressing forestry challenges and opportunities on the national level. So Lisa, for your amazing career and leadership here and nationally, I just want to say thank you. And finally, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, it's hard to believe because it feels like y'all have been here for a long time. I hope you take that as it's intended. It just feels like you've been here a long time. But we welcomed 3 of you in this last year, Commissioners Orscheln, Harrison, and McHenry. I'm sure that it felt like you were drinking from a water hose after seeing the presentation. Might make you realize you actually were. And so I just want to, again, thank you for your support in moving forward final orders of rulemaking for permit restructuring, landowner registry, and acreage requirements, non-resident landowner permits, carcass transport disposal, and trout permits. Those were big tasks, and we had you take them on early on, and so we're so grateful for your leadership there as well. But clearly, we've done a lot. There is much work still to do, and so thank you for all you do for the citizens of Missouri and for this agency. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, if you will allow me to go a little bit more in depth on one of the big things that we've been tackling this year, and that is implementation of our organizational roadmap. Ms. Kendra Whithouse, particularly for our new commissioners, is going to provide an overview of this roadmap, kind of the background of it and where we are now.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. So, for many of you, this will not be anything new, but for our 2 commissioners that haven't had the opportunity to really take in kind of where we've been in the last few months, this is an opportunity for us to bring you up to date on that. And so please bear with me as we do a huge review. And so what we're going to do today is talk about why is change needed. We're going to review some of the work, progress since the October 1st communication to employees, and then finally next steps. So let's talk a little bit about the why. This isn't anything we haven't heard before. Sarah's been talking about transformational changes ahead for quite some time. I don't think that we can hear this message too many times. And so I do want to take an opportunity to recap some of the information that Sarah shared with employees on October 1st. So as you know, we have an amazing history as an agency, as a national leader in conservation. It's been marked by many successes, bringing species back from the brink of extinction, developing a science-based system of natural resource management, providing valuable community policing to enforce our regulations and educate the public, acquiring, managing, providing access to lands and waters, building infrastructure for our public's use and enjoyment, and providing education and informational programs, tools, and materials, and we know that that's just the beginning. Part of the reason we've remained so successful, we've heard Sarah mention many times, is that we have responded to the challenges of the day, and we've been willing to adapt our agency to ensure that we are better prepared to deliver on our mission. And so those of you that have been here for much longer than me, 10 months for me, think of the way that you used to manage and how science has changed how you've approached resources and the changes that we've made in how we service our communities and our public. I believe that we've always been willing to adapt when needed, and it's part of our legacy. And this agency has been very successful, mostly because we've been willing and open to do that. And so I do believe that Sarah's been very open and honest with us to warn us of some things that we need to be attentive to and be willing to address with things that are in our future and are occurring in our natural resource environment. So a little bit more about why change. So we understand that our world is moving at a very fast pace around us. Conservation resources needs are changing rapidly. 20 years ago, many of you in the room didn't even know about CWD, and now it's being lived every year, every day almost. 10 years ago, significantly more people spent time outdoors versus on their phones. In the last 3 years, staff has shared over and over that they are barely treading water with all the priorities and duties on their plate. We are doing lots of good things in the name of conservation, but have increasing needs and challenges we must respond to. There are many changing natural resource conditions and threats to protecting the state's fish, forest, and wildlife, faced with challenges in increasing wildlife health issues, feral hogs, declines in species diversity and ecosystem health. We have shrinking habitat and alarming loss of species. We must continue to look at larger systems view and prioritize efforts in order to prepare for these big natural resource changes and challenges. Another one of our whys is the changing society, from the technological revolution to changing demographics in Missouri and across the nation, including population shifts from rural agriculture to urban areas. Projections show that these patterns will continue and there will be more movement to urban fringe areas. We also have changing conservation habits, meaning conservation interests and pursuits are changing. This has been shown by declines in permanent sales nationally on the one end, but increasing non-consumptive interest on the other. We're experiencing an era of overall decreased trust in government. And with these changes, we still have plenty to take care of. Many of you are aware of the infrastructure we've added to our portfolio in the last 40 years. Existing infrastructure, only so many staff, finite time, finite financial resources, we're simply out of space. And I know that we've heard Sarah share that with us many times. And so as an organization, even before I came, much before I came, they began to look at how do we begin to address this. And this was first addressed through really trying to clearly define the strategic priorities of the organization and really working to align to those priorities. And this has been done through the strategic planning work that's ongoing. Additionally, even prior to my arrival, the formation of operational excellence, where we can begin to take that strategic plan and really put measurable outcomes and dashboards and help us to focus on improving processes throughout the department to become more efficient in the way that we operate. And as we look to organizational realignment, I did want to take an opportunity for the benefit of the newer commissioners to be able to talk just a little bit about some of the history. And so certainly restructuring isn't new to MDC. This timeline denotes many changes. The yellow indicates what we would consider to be major restructure. So certainly change and reorganization isn't new to this agency. So as we think about how the organizational models have changed over time, the department structure was built on disciplinary expertise. It was focused on research, resource needs, and biological restoration. With expansion of education, planning, strategy, and interdisciplinary teams. Also, as function shifts, structure eventually follows. We want to be reminded that our mission stays the same, but definitely our method to deliver must be adaptive. One of the very first things as I came on board to work with the organizational model team is that Sarah and administration was very clear about the things that we needed to focus on and what we needed to do differently. We need to ensure that we thought about strategic plan alignment and regional collaboration, and that we were crystal clear on customer focus, and to look to see how we could improve the efficiency of how we deliver our programs and services, as well as how we communicate with one another and the processes to make decisions. We also understood as a team, and many of you have seen this before, that we know that just structure alone doesn't make a dynamic organization and an organization of excellence, that really it is many pieces of the pie. And so while we've focused a lot on structure, certainly things such as our strategies, our culture, our people, our teams, how we work together across the agency is so important. And so you can see that there are many components to what it takes to make a dynamic, successful organization. So just a little bit about our process. I know, again, this is not new to some of you, but for our commissioners, this has kind of been our process that, again, started before I even arrived this past February, but really first using an adaptive framework, first defining the future state. What is it that we wanted to look like in the future? We were able to do some consultant work with Numeroff. We took time to also say, in this new future state, what are the capabilities that we needed to ensure that we have in our organization? We took time to assess the current state. We evaluated what was working well and what were difficulties in our current structure, as well as we took time to interview staff. I know that you've heard these statistics before, but at that time, we were able to do 207 in-person interviews, 670 online interviews, and really took that information to develop common themes to really help us understand how we might be able to reach our desired future state. From that information, we began to bridge the gap from where we were at currently and where we wanted to be at in the future, designing structural concepts and working to develop a comprehensive report that really encompassed many things in addition to structure. So some of the milestones. First of all, we did, the organizational model team that had been working for almost a year at the time had presented roadmap recommendations back on July 31st. The commission, which, that doesn't include everyone that's here at this table today, did receive a presentation on the 22nd. We literally kicked off the implementation team on the very next day and got their work started as we transitioned from the organization model team to now how do we begin to implement these things that we're recommending. And then there was a leadership and all-employee communication that occurred on September 30th and October 1st. So what I'd like to do now is to give you a little bit of a preview of some of those roadmap details that we did share on October 1st, again, for the benefit of those that haven't had an opportunity to see this previously. So a major part of the work by the team was really defining our new way of doing business. And we did this through what we call as our new system of governance. So it really includes unified strategic priorities. We will continually assess them, budget to them, plan to them, and align to them. Integrated resource management. We've already started an integrated approach to natural resource management with our work in priority geographies, wetland review teams, and district coordination teams. But through this, we are able to formalize this, and in essence, form now follows function. Our new system of governance is also characterized by regional empowerment and accountability, giving the resources, flexibility, and authority where much of the work of conservation gets done, but also placing accountability here as well. Another concept of this new system of governance is centralized standards guiding regional implementation to ensure we don't build up 8 or 9 different ways of doing business, but to creating inconsistencies and inefficiencies, but really how do we ensure that we have consistency across the state. We will centralize standards and guidelines through training and coordination, compliance and auditing, and continue to use continuous improvement to help us ensure that we are consistent in our processes and that we really take on that culture of continuous improvement as a way of doing business. And finally, really just continued heightened focus on our customers. And from a new focus on relevancy to public use to measuring customer experience, we must work to better define and sustain the public will. So again, as a review, this really allows us to depict our strategic focus in terms of how it looks in our new structure. This allows us to show the priorities of our 3 goals: taking care of nature, connecting people with nature, maintaining public trust. Each of the 3 deputies will have accountability, as well as all the teams working under these priorities for operationalizing, executing, and measuring our progress in each of these areas. So just as a review, nothing new here. The director's office, the major changes that we would highlight here is the continued focus for operational excellence in the areas of continuous improvement, customer experience, and strategic planning. And as you can see, the 3 deputies will continue to report to Sarah. So the Deputy Resource Management Branch, so we have names, and Sarah's already shared those names, but Mike Hubbard as the Deputy Resource Management, really it's about directing statewide management and research to conserve the biological diversity of Missouri's fish, forest, and wildlife. In this structure, you'll see that previous divisions of fisheries, forestry, and wildlife now reflect an integrated approach. We'll focus on functions versus disciplines. The new structure is also characterized by a focus on regional resource management and allows us to empower each of the 8 regions to make a more local decisions based on the local needs and resources available and take advantage of the regional expertise that's there. John Tuttle, as we've mentioned previously, is the assistant to the Deputy of Resource Management and will be responsible for overseeing these regional administrators that we have already introduced, and you can see their names there. Really, they're responsible for directing regional operations to implement strategic direction according to established performance measures. They will oversee regional public resource management, community and private land conservation, regional planning, recreational use, infrastructure maintenance and repair, regional business operations and compliance, and coordinates with other disciplines and regions. Our state, another change, again, as Sarah had shared, the names of our new section chiefs under the direction of Brian Canaday, the statewide resource management branch with natural resource planning, fisheries, forestry, and wildlife. And really, these areas will help us dedicate discipline advisors in these areas, ensure that we use natural resource planning to coordinate statewide planning across cutting topics such as CCS and fire, and really just to be able to provide that holistic, integrated resource management by placing these teams together. Bill White will be leading the community and private land conservation, Jason Sumner, Randy Doman for protection, and Jason Sumner's for science. No other significant changes there. So the Deputy for Engagement, led by Aaron Jeffries, with the primary focus is connecting people with nature, helping to provide strategic direction to broaden citizen and partner engagement with the agency, directs statewide engagement efforts, including education, led by Jeff Cockerham, communication and marketing, Heather Feeler. Relevancy is still to be determined. Governmental affairs, we were able to introduce earlier our new member of the team, Jake Buxton, and policy coordination activities to be led by David Thorne. In the new structure, we've added functionality for engaging the public, and we've split out education and communication and marketing for more strategic focused and defined functions. Relevancy is also called out as a major function in the engagement section, We want to have a dedicated and coordinated effort to broaden our connection engagement with new audiences. We know we have intentional work to do reaching diverse people and groups across the state. We now have a national relevancy roadmap to provide the template for our efforts. We've also noted recreational use coordination under relevancy, and this is a way to formalize the work of public use committee to advocate for the end user of our areas. And in essence, we are providing statewide direction and capacity to open up the gates. Though community conservation private lands resides underneath the Deputy Resource Management, clearly these functions are critical for meeting outcomes underneath engagement as well. And then we have the Deputy Director of Business, Jennifer Batson-Warren. Underneath this structure, the position continues to guide the development, implementation, and consistent delivery of statewide business programs and services, ensures statewide compliance with state and federal business laws, policies, and regulations, and responsible for developing the department-wide annual budget and provide oversight to staff responsible for monitoring revenues and expenditures. And so some of the changes that are included here are that the budget function is now reporting directly to the Deputy of Business, which is through Andrew Bond, will be leading this team. Administrative Services becomes Conservation Business Services to more accurately reflect the work being done, and will be led by Cindy Voss. And under Conservation Business Services, we've moved federal aid to integrate with the broader team of financial services staff. Another example of centralized standards is set in central office by Conservation Business Services, but the regions will have responsibility to implement and deploy business service functions in the field. HR is moved for better alignment with the strategic plan and added accountability, and is led by Tom Neubauer. Information technology added a function for data governance and management to provide guidance and direction for how we are going to treat data as an asset. It's more valuable one because it is a valuable one, and we have lots of it. And Douglas Fees will continue to lead this team. D&D becomes infrastructure management. Centralized infrastructure planning and standards are set here, and Jacob Carriaga will continue to lead this team. The field component of D&D will be supervised by the regional administrators, operating within the guidelines set by the centralized planning and standards, much like the model that we're using for Conservation Business Services. At the region, so as you know, John Tuttle is leading that charge with our 8 regional administrators that we have identified and introduced this morning. So just a little bit about how this kind of ties together, highlighting the governance system concepts, the regional empowerment, quicker decision-making balanced with accountability, integrated resource management, so the disciplines, all the more critical for how we're integrated and we deploy management strategies in an effort to work together more closely, regional planning, to help implement strategic planning across the region, regional recreational use coordination, which helps us focus on the needs of the end user, regional business management and oversight to implement statewide standards, provide consistent supervision for administrative professionals, and oversee regional contracting services. Okay. So then, taking all of that, we currently today operate underneath a regional coordination team. That will not change. The things that will look a little different is that our newly identified regional administrators are now the permanent chairs of those committees, and that will help us to offer some consistency around that. Each of the bulleted titles are individuals that will participate on this regional coordination team as they really work together as a team to help make decisions for how to best implement what the work that needs to be done in the region by this team working together and integrated. The regional administrator will be supervising, as you can see, the regional planner, recreational use coordination, regional resource management, community and private land, infrastructure management, and regional business services, while protection, education, science, communications and marketing, as well as information technology will all be a part of the regional coordination team, but will have their direct reports in the central office. So, how does this benefit the MDC team? We believe that through increased role clarity, we will have one set of shared agency-wide priorities, values our staff with market-based pay and new career opportunities, greater empowerment through enhanced decision-making, balanced with increased accountability and statewide direction, strengthens our culture of collaboration, accountability, communication, and customer service, enhances the relevance through deeper relationships with traditional and new diverse customers, leverages expertise of our team, lightens administrative load in the region by consolidating capacity in some areas such as planning and contracting, and eliminates duplication of efforts while increasing efficiency. So I'd just like to say that we need to remember that this is a journey. This work cannot be effectively accomplished in just a few months. In fact, cultural transformation for organizations of this size take many, many years, sometimes as many as 5 to 7. But my hope is that we'll continue to make strides and our progress will stay focused with holding one another accountable to the ultimate goal. And so I do want to take a little bit of a couple slides here to share with you some of the progress since October 1st, as well as some of the next steps. So some of the progress that we've had since we shared with employees on October 1st is that we have announced several new positions, and we've reviewed those today. Another change is we've made a decision to change our nomenclature from the word division to branch, really hoping to signify unity versus division. And then that would be followed by sections and then units and programs as applicable. The implementation team continues to work regularly, having weekly updates and meetings with administration to provide them an update. I want to just give a lot of credit to each of the branch leaders as well as the new regional administrators that have really taken their teams and spent a tremendous amount of time over the last 4 to 6 weeks working with the implementation team to develop what this future structure will look like. And so it has definitely been a huge effort on many people's parts, being prepared, coming to check in with us every 2 weeks, and really being able to have that dialogue about what the future state of our department looks like. And so I do want to thank them for the amount of work and effort that they have put forth to get us as far along in this process as we've reached. The regional administration implementation team kickoff, and so we brought the regional administrators together literally within one week of, or less, I guess, of them being all announced, brought them together, did a mini kind of kickoff and orientation. We had an opportunity to talk a little bit about like how they may operate in the future, how they'll hold one another accountable, how they'll communicate on a regular basis, and how they'll communicate with their staff in the regions. Also is giving them a very quick crash course in bringing them up to speed on the implementation team work, and really gave them assignments to go out and begin the work, and they have done that. And so very much appreciate John and the regional administrators' leadership to do what we've asked them to do. As far as culture, the culture team continues to work. Most recently, you were asked to participate in a very brief pulse survey, and I'll just share some results in another slide with you in a moment. We also had an opportunity the first week of December to engage a consultant group, particularly for change management, that came in and led a day and a half with our branch leadership, some of our section leaders, as well as our regional administrators, and really took the time to focus on helping us make sure that we're addressing the things that we need to address to move the organization forward as it relates to culture particularly, as well as just helping us to set out some actions going forward to help hold us as a team accountable to moving to our desired future state, whether it's through structure work or cultural work. And so much more work to be done as a follow-up to the retreat, but the culture team is really taking on those next steps, and very pleased with their progress and work. We have the process team that while most of the process work will occur after December 31st, there were some things that needed to at least be looked at prior to, but that team is really working to build a strategy on how do we how do we have a process to deal with the processes, right? So we've identified many processes that will likely be impacted by structural change. Some simply need to be reviewed, some will change significantly. And so we're working to build a process library and help us prioritize how we might address which processes first. As far as communication updates, continue to go to the organizational roadmap SharePoint site. We're working to at least have biweekly communication from the director's office, the most recent being the announcement of the section leaders, as well as we are continuing to reach out. Some committees are a little further along than others. There's been many of employees across the organization that have said, hey, I would like to help. And number one, I want to thank you for that. It's almost overwhelming, I'll just tell you. We've been able to engage many of you. There are some that still feel like maybe I haven't heard from you or I haven't been engaged yet. I promise you we will be engaging you. There's just, the truth of the matter is there's just so much to be done over a course of time. We can't get it all done in just a couple months. And so the good news is we'll be able to spread some of this work out over, especially the next 6 months. And so there will be opportunities, but I do know that we have engaged a significant number of those individuals that have come forward to say, hey, I want to help. And so there are some teams that are lagging a little bit more, such as the Measures and Surveys team. I lead that team. That team is lagging a little bit. I'll just put it out there. But continuing to appreciate those who are willing to step up and volunteer. I think this was in a previous communication, but I did want to put it back up here again, that please feel free if you continue to have interest in helping or even have ideas, even if you can't actively be involved, but you've put some thought into it. We have a lot of smart people in this organization and have sat in a lot of different positions and shoes, and so we welcome your insight and feedback to us. And so as you can see, the leaders, structure, Kevin Borsinko and Megan Buchanan, processes, Jake Hyman, Jenny Wallace, communication as Lucas Bond, in addition to, I'm going to skip down, culture with Audrey Bears and Brooke Drektra, with Heather Feeler kind of leading those two groups. Training, Jerry Weissman, technology, Todd Larrabee, and the Measures and Surveys is being led by myself. So just a minute about the pulse survey that we just recently took. I want to be able to share those results to you. This is something that the culture team will probably continue to see some of these pulse checks. I think it's good for us to know how to make sure that we as a leadership team have a feel for how the organization is feeling. So I do appreciate the response. We had 922 individuals that did respond. So I do appreciate that, and we continue to ask to continue to give us feedback, because our intent is that we will use this information to help make improvements for things that are identified. But 71% of respondents felt positive about the change framework. 63 felt positive about the potential for change. 64% of respondents find the recent communications from MDC leadership about the changes ahead are helpful, and 83% of respondents are still interested in helping shape the changes ahead. And so we know that we still have work to do, but I do appreciate the feedback that was given, and the team is actively working on how we can begin to work to increase those rates. Last but not least, next steps. And so, as I said, the culture team continues to develop action plans as a follow-up to the leadership retreat, which includes also the work with the Pulse survey work. It also includes work that the Metropolitan Group, the consultant, brought forth in terms of how we view the values, and voice of our organization. So that's continued important work. The branch leaders and regional administrators have all submitted, I think pretty much everyone has, the due date was today, their draft structures to the implementation team. And again, we've been having regular dialogue with them on an ongoing basis. The implementation team will be presenting to administration on December 20th, which is next Friday, and working towards an all MDC communication update plan that will hopefully at least another, it's probably not the last one for this year, but at least another update for next week. And that is all I have. Any questions?
It would be helpful, thank you very much. It would be helpful if you would get the commission a copy of
Absolutely,
all of that presentation.
yes.
And then that way, if we have questions, if the individual commissioners have questions, they can direct them to you.
Yes, perfect.
Thank
Be
you.
happy to.
We have, next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Do we have anything to pull from that, commissioners?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Then I would like a motion to approve the consent calendar, which includes, I think, 5 different action items.
So moved,
Good.
Mr. President.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're gonna take about a 10-minute break. Thank you. Thank you for your quick response to starting back. Mike Hubbard. You're up. Oh, I'm sorry. These are award presentations. Yeah, who is Paul? Jason?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jason Sumners. I serve the Department as Resource Science Division Chief. It's my pleasure this morning to recognize resource scientist Paul Micklitz. Paul received the 2019 Fisheries Biologist of the Year Award at the recent Midwest Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies Directors Annual Meeting in Ohio. The award is given to an individual who has shown an unparalleled initiative towards better understanding of fishes and their conservation. Paul has been employed by MDC since 1986, conducting research primarily on our reservoirs and small impoundments. Paul is recognized as an expert in his field, particularly as it relates to gizzard shad population dynamics. His work has resulted in over 25 scientific publications. He is respected by fisheries managers for his applied research that has real-world applications, and is also held in high regard by aquatic ecologists for his well-designed studies that shed light into trophic dynamics in aquatic ecosystems. During his tenure with MDC, Paul has worked on a variety of issues. These have included sampling methodologies for gizzard shad and channel catfish and impoundments, techniques currently used by biologists across the U.S., population dynamics and feeding ecology of gizzard shad, evaluation of walleye stocking success in reservoirs, effects of channel cat stocking on food web dynamics, role of macrophytes and gizzard shad in structuring bluegill populations, determining optimal stocking rates of channel catfish in small impoundments, and the use of hybrid striped bass to help restructure crappie populations and in turn provide angler opportunities in small impoundments. Paul's dedication to understanding small impoundment and reservoir ecosystems through applied management-oriented research and his desire to relay this understanding to fellow professionals and the public are the main reasons why he received the 2019 MAFWA Fisheries Biologist of the Year Award. So, Paul, if you would, please stand and be recognized.
Thank you, Jason. Congratulations, Paul. Brian?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, it's my pleasure to have the opportunity to present some additional recognition for the department. My first time as the Resource Management Chief, and so I feel pretty good about that. Hard to follow someone that is a recognized expert like Paul Micklitz. He absolutely represents some of the very best our agency has to offer, not only to our citizens, but to others in the nation. So congratulations again, Paul. I, on the other hand, have a great opportunity to present some recognition from the American Fisheries Society to the department. The American Fisheries Society is the world's oldest fisheries dedicated scientific organization, and we have many, many members of both our state chapter and, of course, the parent society, even in attendance today, so including myself as a lifetime member. So it's my pleasure to present an award from the American Fisheries Society to the Missouri Department of Conservation and the Commission on behalf of a program that we've done. It's called the St. Louis Urban Fishing Program, and it's our 50th anniversary for that project. The St. Louis Urban Fishing Program has a rich history, which began in 1969 as a cooperative effort between the U.S. Bureau of Sport Fishes and the Missouri Department of Conservation. We did this in partnership with St. Louis City Department of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry. It was one of 6 pilot programs across the nation that the Bureau developed to create some close-to-home fishing opportunities for urban anglers, especially in those inner city areas. As that program is redefined and fined over the next 3 years, the Bureau, the feds, phased out their involvement, but the Department of Conservation assumed full responsibility and management for it because they saw the value and how back in the 60s and early 70s, even then, how it connected our citizens to nature, where they live, which is a very key component of our current strategic plan. Beginning in the mid-1990s, our development of our department community assistance program was used to work with those partners and make some different lake renovations and improve fishing access in those areas. Between 1996 and 2004, the Commission working with partners, committed over $1 million to complete renovations at 12 lakes in the St. Louis County and city area. It was an amazing project for that. Just this summer, we celebrated our 50th anniversary with that. There was a lot of local media and social media events about that anniversary, television interviews, news releases. We had a wonderful conservationist article about it. I think one of the most popular things was an online bragging board where people could show what they caught, talk about where they caught it. It was kind of neat. Through our department's Facebook page, and there was, of course, video series and presentations all over. One of the things we're the most proud of is how the cities and the county took a lot of ownership in this program and continue to do that today. Both the City of St. Louis Mayor and the St. Louis County Executive proclaimed legal proclamations on those particular parts of the summer, calling them Family Fishing Festival dates, as basically the St. Louis Urban Fishing Day, and that was a big step for our local media. Of course, kudos to Fisheries for some of their work in this, but it can't do it alone. We've had a great partnership with the Outreach and Education, Protection, and Design and Development to make this program successful for the first 50 years. We're looking forward to continuing this for another 50. And so with that, we received a really nice plaque that we intend to then present to our St. Louis regional staff during our regional meetings coming up here this winter. So it can be displayed where most of the work is happening. So with that, congratulations to the department as a whole for receiving this recognition. I am going to brag just a little bit. After all, I am an angler. This is the second time in the last 3 years the department has received recognition from the American Fishery Society for one of our aquatic-related programs. That's a real source of pride for all of us, so thank you.
Wonderful, congratulations. Jacob, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Pauly. My name is Jacob Carriaga. I serve as the Design Development Division Chief, and I am happy to recognize a team, really, for their work. And project engineer Matthew Pringer, PE, attended the annual Association of Conservation Engineers Conference in Alabama and represented the department to receive the 2019 Carl V. Anderson Conservation Project Award of Excellence for the Duck Creek Conservation Area Golden Anniversary Wetlands Renovation Project. The Carl V. Anderson Conservation Project Award is awarded annually and recognizes members, consultants, and/or their agencies for outstanding projects in conservation engineering. The purpose of this design awards competition is to give recognition to those whose work, as judged by their peers and associates, best exhibits the goals and objectives of the Association of Conservation Engineers. The Association of Conservation Engineers is an international professional organization of engineers and related disciplines who work with the natural environment and promote the application of sound engineering practices in the field of natural resource protection and recreation development. Previous MDC projects that have received this award include Eagle Bluffs Conservation Area Wetlands Development in 1994, Four Rivers Conservation Area Wetlands Development in 1998, Lost Valley Fish Hatchery in 2002, Roaring River Fish Hatchery Water Supply Renovation and Dam Stabilization in 2007, and the Bush Memorial Shooting Range and Outdoor Education Center in 2018. The Duck Creek Golden Anniversary Wetlands Initiative project was a multidisciplinary and multi-agency team effort. Staff from D&D, Wildlife, Resource Science, Fisheries, and Forestry, as well as the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the U.S. Geological Survey helped with this project. Construction started in 2010, and in 2015, Matthew Pringer took over as the project engineer after the previous engineer, Mitch Strother, had retired. Prior to Mr. Strother working on the project, he had taken it over from Kerry Scott when he left the department to work for Ducks Unlimited designing wetlands. So for the last 10 years, Duck Creek Conservation Area has been undergoing major renovations to the aging infrastructure as part of this renovation project. The project is an example of the evolution of the philosophy for managing the complex and altered landscapes of a floodplain. Historic development has altered the hydrologic regime in southeast Missouri, and this project recreates the historic temporal and spatial patterns by mimicking the pre-settlement slough systems. In total, this project included 10 miles of ditch cleaning and reshaping, 50 replaced or new water control structures, including the Obermeyer structure, which is a pneumatically operated air bladder gate structure, pretty innovative. 1,400 acres of grading, over 15 miles of sculpted levees, 13.5 miles of new ditches, 8 footbridges, 2 ADA floating fishing docks, 2 concrete boat ramps with courtesy skid docks, and the conversion of 4 existing diesel power wells to electric power, as well as the addition of 2 new electric powered wells. Yeah. It was a massive undertaking. To ensure successful completion, a project of this size requires work of many staff with multiple and diverse talents and job responsibilities. I would now like to recognize the following individuals who represent their work teams and help make this project successful. Matt Pringer, if you would stand, please. He's a project engineer, he's the lead. Mike Tudor, engineering design technician. Mike's in the back there. And just as a side note, soon after this recognition, Mike's gonna hop in his car, drive up to Columbia, put on his cap and gown, and graduate today with his engineering degree. So very, very happy for Mike. David Jones, contract superintendent. He represents the team that did the inspection, the construction inspection. Ronnie Thurston, Southeast Region Construction and Maintenance Superintendent. Stephen Dixon, survey superintendent. Sandy Payne, contract specialist. She's in the back there. Nikki Phillips, contract technician. Lynn Kuhn, environmental compliance specialist, helped us with all the permitting clearances for this project. And then lastly, Frank Nelson, environmental resource scientist, and Keith Cordell, wildlife management biologist, who helped to develop the initial concepts and scope for the project. I would also like to thank any other employees in attendance that worked on the project and ask them to stand for recognition as well. It really was a team effort. So if you would stand. Thank you. And congratulations to everyone for a well-deserved award of excellence.
Thank you, Jacob. Randy, looks like you're up.
Good morning, Commissioners, Administration, Ms. Maples. My name is Randy Doman. I serve as the Protection Branch Chief. It'll take me a while to get used to that, but happy to be here. And I'm proud to recognize the Missouri Department of Conservation's pistol team, represented here today by Conservation Agents Doug Yeager, Justin Fogel, Ben Pursley, and Andrew Feistel, and also District Supervisors Brian Ham and Chris Grody. In late September, the Missouri Department of Conservation pistol teams, made up of a separate 4-person and 2-person team, headed to the National Police Shooting Competition in Pearl, Mississippi at the Mississippi Law Enforcement Training Complex. This international event is attended by law enforcement professionals from across the United States and the world. This marked the return of the event to the state of Mississippi, where it had previously been held until 2005, when Hurricane Katrina destroyed the previous shooting range venue. This was the second year that the 4-person and 2-person teams were able to compete, which enabled the MDC representatives to compete in all the agency team matches, and the team did an outstanding job. They placed very well in group and individual events and received several awards, to include first place, State 2-Officer Production Semi-Auto Award, second place, State 4-Officer Production Semi-Auto Award, third place, State 4-Officer Open Revolver, High Conservation Team Awards in 2-Officer Production Semi-Auto and Open Revolver, and High Conservation Team Awards in 4-Officer Production Semi-Auto, Open Semi-Auto, and Open Revolver, and a partridge in a pear tree. In addition to the pistol competitions, the team was also able to compete in some rifle and shotgun competitions. They proved to be equally as competitive. Free armorer courses were also attended by our team members, which resulted in armorer certification through Glock and Sig Sauer, which will be well utilized here within the department. Finally, the team would like to extend our deepest thanks to the Commission and administration for your continued support of the MDC pistol team. As everyone on the team had already commented several times, it is an honor to represent the Missouri Department of Conservation on a national level, to show that Missouri conservation agents are serious about their training and are a valuable asset to their conservation and law enforcement communities. Gentlemen, please stand to be recognized.
Randy, I would tell you that I did speak with them a minute ago, and the commission would like to have a picture outside when the meeting's over, out in the front entrance.
Yes, sir. Be happy to.
Okay, please, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, congratulations, and the others as well. All the award winners will meet in the lobby area. Thank you. You too, Mike, if you want to.
I don't think that'll be because of an award, I don't know. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Director Polly. The Regulations Committee met on November 21st, and today I'll present several action items for your consideration. Commissioners, as its first order of business, the committee reviewed a series of recommendations related to the incidental take of feral hogs on lands owned, leased, or managed by the department. Given the recent decision by the U.S. Forest Service to allow opportunistic take of those animals during turkey and deer hunting seasons, I've instructed Protection Division to revise those recommendations to ensure consistency with those in place on the Mark Twain National Forest. I expect to bring those proposed regulation changes forward for commission consideration at your meeting on January 30th. At this point, Mr. Chairman, I would like to introduce resource scientist Raina Tile. Raina joined the department this past June to lead Missouri's turkey program. She earned a Bachelor's of Science in Wildlife and Fisheries from Ohio State University in 2015 and has defended her Master's in Wildlife and Fisheries Resources from West Virginia University. Her master's work focused on turkey population ecology in northeastern South Dakota, where she worked closely with the public, private landowners, and the South Dakota Game, Fish, and Parks Department. Raina is here today to provide an overview of Missouri's turkey population status and recommendations for the 2020 turkey hunting seasons. And with that, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Ms. Tile.
Good morning, Commissioners. All right, so yeah, I'm going to be talking about the 2020 Missouri wild turkey hunting regulation recommendations, and first I'm going to go through just a little brief update about our population status. So, as many of you know, turkey populations have declined by about 25% during the mid to late 2000s. Some regions, specifically in North Missouri, experienced declines of over 50% of their population. This is not unique to Missouri. A lot of our bordering states, Arkansas, Iowa, and Kansas and Oklahoma, have seen similar declining trends in turkey abundance during that same period of time. The turkey production was pretty poor during the latter half of the 2000s, which kind of contributed to that decline. Improved production during 2011, 2012, and 2014 led to an abundance stabilization in the early part of the 2010s. But recently we've been seeing some pretty poor hatches. 2016 to 2019, production has been near record lows, with the most recent brood survey this year showing production was the same as last year at 0.9 poult to hen ratio. So a few years of poor production just recently here in the state. Are you going to go into why? So we don't know exactly why. We have a proposed study out right now to try to look at some of the factors that are influencing turkey production as far as what's influencing nest success and poult survival, weather, predators, land use changes, food availability, all of that. So we're hoping in the coming years, if that project is funded, we'll be able to better figure out what's contributing to this poor production that we've been observing recently in Missouri and in other parts of the Midwest and United States. So this past spring season in 2019, a total of over almost 39,000 birds were harvested. The youth season had 2,500 birds harvested, and this was a slight increase from our 2018 spring season. But the permit sales continued to decline. We had about over 93,000 spring turkey hunting permits sold and over 123,000 unique wild turkey hunters between landowner permits and regular permit sales. And this is kind of a map of the distribution of harvest throughout the state. So most intense harvest occurring south of the Missouri River, but some pockets up in the north where we had some decent numbers of turkeys harvested in each county. The fall firearm season that just concluded here at the end of October, we had a total harvest of about of 1,900 turkeys, and this was a 10% decline from last year's turkey harvest in the fall firearm season. And unfortunately, it was our lowest harvest on record. And we had under 10,000 permits sold this year during the fall firearm season, which was also our lowest permits sales during the fall firearm season since it started in 1978. And here's a map of the distribution of that harvest, mostly kind of in the southeastern part of Missouri is where the heaviest harvest occurred. The fall archery season, these numbers are from the 2018 season because we are still currently in the archery season this year. So during the 2018 archery season, we harvested about 2,000 birds. This was a 14% decline from the 2017 harvest total. But we are seeing an increasing interest in fall archery hunting. So every year, or the last few years, we've been selling more and more archery permits every year. And again, this is how that harvest is distributed throughout the state, kind of a lot along the Missouri River and then some pockets in the southern part of the state there. So we evaluate several criteria every year to determine if we are going to propose changes to our regulations. There's only one criterion we look at for determining changes to the fall season, and that is that the fall turkey harvest should not exceed the spring harvest, and a more conservative approach would be that the fall harvest shouldn't be more than 50% of the spring harvest. And so the 2018 fall harvest was about 11% of the 2019 spring harvest, so well below that 50% and definitely well below hitting that total spring harvest. And this was met in all of our regions that we look at and statewide. Our North Missouri research project that recently concluded earlier this year, at least the field portion of it, indicated that hunters are shooting less than 1% of hens on the landscape during the fall season. And based on the current harvest rates that we found from that study and other recent research in the Ozark region, basically the harvest rates are so low that if we were to make any changes to the regulations so that they're more conservative, it wouldn't create any appreciable increase in abundance. So because of that, we're recommending no change for the fall 2020 regulations, maintaining those season dates being the month of October and the limit being 2 turkeys of either sex. For the spring season, we evaluate 5 criteria. 7 criteria. I can't remember. So the first, the first criteria that we evaluate is spring gobbler harvest per square mile of forest. And so basically this looks at the long-term average since we made changes to the turkey season in 1998. And this states that the regions should be greater than or equal to 75% of the long-term average harvest per square mile of forest. And this criterion was met statewide. 2 of our regions did not meet this criteria, being our most unforested northern regions of the state, the Northeast and the Northwest region, but they were still quite high, 71 to 74% of the long-term average in those regions. Our spring turkey hunter success regions, each region and statewide should be greater than or equal to 75% of the long-term average number of turkeys harvested per 1,000 trips. And this was met statewide and in all of our regions. Our spur length distribution of adult gobblers to give us an idea of the age structure of that gobbler population that's being harvested. This states that the percent of gobblers that have spurs less than 1 inch should be less than or equal to 60% in each region. And again, this was met in each region and at the statewide scale. So we also take a look at the percentage of juvenile males in the spring harvest. The criterion states that this should be related to the previous year's hatch. So if you have a better hatch, you would expect to see more juveniles being harvested the following spring. It states that the amount of juvenile males in the harvest should not be greater than 50% of the harvest. So you would still expect more adult gobblers being harvested than juveniles in the spring harvest. And this was met both statewide and in each region. We also look at a couple of hunter satisfaction metrics to get an idea of, people's perception of the turkey population and their hunting experience. And so we look at the percent of hunters who rate their experience hunting during the spring as excellent or good should be greater than or equal to 33% of people who respond. And this was met statewide in all regions. In 2019, 46% of hunters that went out during the spring rated their season as excellent or good.
Doesn't that seem odd to you that the number of turkeys is down substantially?
What that tells me is that there's still, yeah. So in Missouri, what determines a quality hunt is seeing and hearing gobblers, and then secondary is harvesting a gobbler. So most guys, when they go out, they just want to see and hear gobblers. So that tells us there's still enough turkeys out there to provide a quality hunting experience as of right now. So we also take a look at hunter interference rates. And so the percent of hunters that have little or no problem with hunter interference should be greater than or equal to 65%. And from year to year, overwhelmingly hunters say they don't have any issue with interference with other hunters, because hunter interference can detract from the quality of their hunt. So because of all of these criteria being met statewide and in almost all regions, we recommend no change for the timing of the 2020 spring season. The youth season being, we're proposing it be April 4th through 5th. That's due to the typical weekend being Easter weekend, so we are going to push it forward a week. The regular season starting that third Monday in April on April 20th, and then going through May 10th. And we recommend no change in the bag limit and for the 2020 spring season. So 2 male turkeys or turkeys with a visible beard may be taken during the season, provided only 1 is taken during that first week and 1 per day during the final 2 weeks. We're also proposing some changes to the conservation area regulations this year. We basically want to add 3 conservation areas, Dr. Harry and Miss Lena, Barrier Memorial Conservation Area, Noser Mill, and Sand Prairie, add those under statewide regulations. And then we would also like to add the August A. Bush Shooting Range and Outdoor Education Center under managed hunts for the regular season. We would also like to propose a few changes to some of our managed turkey hunts, that being the addition of a managed hunt at August A. Bush Shooting Range and Outdoor Education Center to occur May 4th through 5th during the regular season. And this would be for 2 first-time hunters age 18 or older who have never purchased a turkey tag. And there would be a mandatory pre-hunt orientation. We propose to cancel the youth managed hunts that have been held at Columbia Bottom Conservation Area due to that major and prolonged flooding. It's just not, the people there think it'd be best just to let the turkeys kind of come back into the area and not have that pressure. And then we're proposing to remove the pre-hunt orientation requirements for the youth managed hunts in some of the St. Louis area conservation areas. We find that the mentors that these youth have are already experienced, and so the pre-hunt orientation is could free up staff time when it's maybe not necessary. So this kind of outlines the 3 action items. Our recommendation for no change to the season structure or bag limits for the 2020 spring and fall turkey seasons. Recommendation of approval of those changes to the conservation area regulations, and approval of the spring managed hunt changes that I outlined. And I'm just going to go into a brief overview. So we are currently in the process of updating our wild turkey management plan. And so I'm going to provide some details about that. So the current management plan that we operate under is called the Wild Turkey Harvest Management Plan, and this was finalized in 1997. And the purpose, which it states in the document, was to guide turkey management from 1998 to 2002. So relatively outdated. The objectives of this were to protect the turkey resource, provide hunting opportunities commensurate with the desires of hunters, obviously within the limits set by that wild turkey resource, maintain and enhance the quality of the spring hunt, and provide hunting opportunity in the fall as long as it does not have a measurable effect on the spring season. When this document was written, turkey population was growing and we were reaching our peak abundance that we saw in about 2004. So it's a very different kind of environment from what we're observing now. There have been considerable changes in turkey management since the plan was written. Turkey numbers have declined considerably in some areas of the state. Production the past several years especially has been quite low. and we are seeing a declining number of spring and fall turkey hunters. So our current plan is an operational harvest management plan that it really is just guiding harvest management. And it includes human dimensions to some extent, as you saw with us looking at hunter satisfaction and interference metrics. But we really feel we need to develop a new plan that encompasses all of the other sorts of aspects of turkey management in the state. So goals related to habitat management, population stabilization or sustainability of our population, hunter recruitment and retention, and then also incorporating some ways that we can, maybe educate the public about the turkey population and get them more engaged with the resource in the current day when we're seeing this declining participation of hunters. And so with that, I'll take any questions that you have.
Rita, thank you. Could I get a motion, Commissioners, to approve the 3 action items, and then we'll discuss?
So moved.
Second. Okay, discussion?
I just had some questions on your presentation. This continual decline is really concerning. I think we have a 0.9 poult per hen recruitment. And, I watched the quail population kind of do the same thing, and we blame it on, resource or, habitat, that sort of thing. Turkey is not impacted that much. And I guess what gets my attention is we see that, but we're still staying with the same regulations. And I appreciate we're going to be doing some research on it, but it said like 1% of the hens in the fall is all that was, harvested, that sort of thing. Or the ones maybe that are producing. But I think it's pretty urgent that we really look at it, because we haven't had 14 years of wet springs, on that sort of thing. So I think it's really, really important we look at this, because, Missouri's been known as one of the best turkey states in the United States to hunt, and we've really seen a decline in our numbers from, 2.5 poults per hen to 0.9, and if that sustains, it's gonna be a real serious problem.
Yeah, so we have evaluated our fall harvest rates using some of the most recent data that we've collected on those harvest rates and the recent data we've collected on survival and reproduction throughout the state. And what those models showed us, we simulated multiple scenarios. If we were to make more conservative regulations where we would lower bag limits or shorten the season, and then also if we were to completely close the fall season, what we could expect the population trend to be into the future. And what we found was that if we completely closed all the fall harvest of turkeys, the population would expect to increase on the statewide scale by only 3%. So it was really marginal increase in numbers. And so we feel that, we don't want to take away that opportunity from the people who want to engage in fall hunting, because what the model is showing us is it's not really having an effect on abundance. What's having the biggest effect is production. And so that's why we're trying to shift to looking at what's, contributing to this low production that we've seen in recent years, and potentially which ways we could mitigate those negative effects on production that we're observing or that we find out. So,
Well, and,
yeah.
kind of in that same vein as, and it's a much longer topic than for here, but, in the fall, the easiest birds to kill are, of course, the juveniles. And in all the many fall turkey hunts I've gone on, usually those are the easiest ones to call in, and usually the hen is what's leading that group, which is who gets killed. And, that may be true in some respect, but the hens that are being consistently productive may be having a higher incidence of take, which we don't look at that in hunter harvest and that sort of thing. So an aspect of it that we may be really targeting the most productive hens in the fall may be a very significant concern on that.
Yeah, as we develop the new management plan, we're going to continue to evaluate our harvest regulations, and we are hoping to get a study going where we'll kind of try to verify that what hunters are checking through the telecheck system is accurate. So having them send in feathers, that way we can get an idea more accurately of how many hens are being taken each year, how many juvenile birds, male or female, but yeah, it's something we're continuing to monitor through the future, because we know if this production continues the way it is, we're going to have to take a serious look and make sure our harvest rates aren't exceeding what the population can sustain.
Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Any other questions?
First off, a good presentation, Rand. You're working on a new management plan. as you said, and of course, the one you have is 20 years old. So is that something you're doing here through the course of 2020, or what's your timeline?
Yeah, so we've started working on that already, and we are have a mission statement and some goals kind of roughly outlined, working on developing some strategies and objectives within those. We're hoping, the idea right now, and this is always subject to change, but in later next year might be when we implement that new plan, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, and I would ask also if you would get the commission a copy of your report,
Okay,
please. Be very helpful.
thank you.
Thank you for your hard work. Mike, you're back.
I'm back again. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move through this fairly quickly if that's, the next action item is located on page 17 of your packet and pertains to Missouri's 2020-2021 deer season. As a reminder, final recommendations for regulations pertaining to the 2020-21 deer season will be submitted to the commission next spring. However, establishing the season structure now will provide those who must make early projections for annual leave with additional information on which to base those decisions. Proposed dates for the 2020 and 2021 firearms deer season are as follows. The early youth portion would be October 31 through November 1st, 2020. November firearms portion would be November 14th through the 24th. Late youth would be November 27th through the 29th. Antlerless portion would be December 4th through the 6th. And alternative methods portion would be December 26th of 2020 through January 5th of 2021. Mr. Chairman, I request commission approval of the recommendations to establish season dates for each portion of the 2020-21 fall firearms deer seasons as described.
Do I have a motion to that effect? So moved, Mr. President. So moved. Second.
Second.
Made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, due to an oversight when recommendations were brought forward to establish reduced-cost non-resident landowner permits earlier this year, on page 18 of your packet is a proposed amendment to 3 CSR 10-5.554, non-resident archery antlerless deer hunting permit, that adds the non-resident landowner archer's hunting permit to the list of prerequisites needed to purchase a non-resident archery antlerless deer hunting permit. If approved today, the anticipated effective date of the amendment would be June 30th of 2020. Mr. Chairman, I request commission approval of this action item as described.
Fellow commissioners, can I have a motion to that effect?
So moved, sir.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed likewise, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, recall that in August, you voted to approve a series of recommendations for wildlife code changes identified by the Regulations Committee during the mid-year code review. Following the Commission's initial consideration, those proposed rulemakings were filed with the Secretary of State's office, along with others approved by the Commission earlier in 2019 that have a designated effective date of February 29th of 2020. Publication of those rulemakings in the Missouri Register initiated a 30-day public comment period. From October 2nd through the 31st, the department received input on 3 of the 13 proposed rulemakings open for comment. The summary of input received on 3 CSR 10-7.410 hunting methods, 10-7.439 deer chronic wasting disease management program, permit availability methods and limits, and 10-11.180 hunting general provisions and seasons, along with staff responses, are included on final orders of rulemaking provided in your commission packet beginning on page 19. This presentation of order of rulemaking is a formal commission action item, signifies the final step in the department's regulation process. The commission has the authority to adopt as originally written, amend, or withdraw the proposed regulations. Mr. Chairman, unless the commission has any questions or concern, I would request approval for final orders of rulemaking for 10-4.11 endangered species, 4.117 prohibited species, 4.130 owner may protect property, public safety, 7.405 general provisions, 7.410 hunting methods, 7.439 deer chronic wasting disease management program, permit availability methods and limits, 8.510 use of traps, 10.743 commercial establishments, 11.140 camping, 11.180 hunting general provisions seasons, 11.186 waterfowl hunting, 11.200 fishing general provisions and seasons, and 11.205 fishing methods and hours, with no changes to the original recommendations. And I present that to the commission for their consideration.
Thank you, fellow commissioners. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Commissioners, since my last Regulations Committee report, citizens have provided input on existing regulations, use of thermal imaging and night vision equipment, permit restructuring, landowner permits and privileges, and elk, deer, and turkey hunting regulations. A summary of comments received on those proposed rulemakings, as well as input from citizens on existing regulations, are included in my formal report beginning on page 3 of your packet. Upcoming meetings of the Regulations Committee are scheduled for January 6th, which will be our annual review of the Wildlife Code, March 18th, April 16th, June 4th, July 15th, September 10th, and November 10th of 2020. Mr. Chairman, unless you or members of the commission have questions, this concludes my Regulations Committee report.
Thank you. Any questions of Mike? Steve? Mark? Barry?
No.
Thank you.
Commissioner, if I have your approval, I'll move right along.
You continue, sir.
Okay. Commissioners, Melissa, the next presentation you will hear is from Melissa Brigler, who began working for the department in 2007 as a grassland botanist. In that position, she conducted research projects that included methods to control Sericea lespedeza, optimum seeding rates for prairie reconstructions, and vegetative impacts following patch burn grazing. Melissa assumed the position of state botanist in 2009. Her primary responsibilities include guidance and oversight of botanical components of the Missouri Natural Heritage Program and coordination of Missouri's ginseng program. She also serves as the department's plant expert and coordinates plant collection permits on lands owned or leased by the agency. Melissa is here today to provide an overview of Missouri's ginseng program. There are no action items associated with this presentation. However, I do expect to bring recommendations for commission consideration within the next few months related to the presentation that she will provide. Melissa, with that, I'll turn the podium over to you.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
In my 10 years so far as the state botanist for the department, this is the first opportunity I've had to speak before the commission, so I'm thrilled to be here. We need to talk about plants more.
We are sure it will not be your last. Thank you.
I don't know how to take that, but okay.
How do you like it so far?
I'll give it a few more minutes first. And I do know that
And
you
again,
are...
if I might, we would also like a copy of your report.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. And I do know that you're wanting to speed up a little bit with the agenda, so I will be as brief as I can. I'd like to start with talking a little bit about the background of ginseng. Ginseng has been used as a medicinal plant for centuries among Asian and Native American cultures. And it's interesting to know that despite the geographical separation of these cultures, they all did seem to have a term to refer to this plant that translated in some way to man root, or root that's shaped like a man. And you can certainly see why, because the root of ginseng does kind of resemble the shape of a human form. For that reason, people have thought it must be a very valuable medicinal plant, good for a multitude of health benefits. And European settlers also bought onto the signatures doctrine, where they assumed that ginseng was a very important medicinal plant. However, even by the early 1700s, there was already a well-established market in Asian cultures for ginseng. And so it quickly became known that ginseng was much more valuable overseas than it was within the United States. Word spread back then particularly quickly among fur trappers and traders, and it's interesting to know that that connection still exists today, where many of our fur trappers in Missouri also gather ginseng. On through the early 20th century, we really saw the heyday of ginseng exports from the United States, what sometimes is referred to as the green gold rush. There was just a lot of more people in the area. That area had been settled by then, and massive amounts of ginseng were exported from the United States every year. And this photo shows a representation of that era, where just a very large shipment, just one shipment leaving West Virginia at that particular time. But every year, massive amounts of ginseng were exported, much more back then than there is today. And virtually all ginseng back then and even today was exported and is currently exported. Very, very little ginseng that was gathered in the United States stays within the United States. It's all pretty much shipped to the Orient. Today we've seen that industry move on to places like bait shops, taxidermy shops, outdoor supply stores, and again, that connection with fur trading and trapping. So we have people that buy and sell fur and hide, also buy and sell ginseng. It's still all very closely tied to foreign markets. Due to improving Asian economies, what used to be considered only something rich people could afford, more and more people are able to buy ginseng. So there's a greater demand for it. However, the supply is not really kept up with that. So we see an increase in value of ginseng. We also see some recent television shows that have glamorized the amount of money you can make off of ginseng and made it look like a real get-rich-quick scheme. And so that's increased a lot of interest that we have in the state. And you have to know where to find it. It's not easy. There's a lot of lookalikes out there that trick people thinking they have a lot of ginseng and it's really Virginia creeper or a hickory seedling or something. But ginseng grows in a heavily canopied, heavily shaded area in ravines, north-facing slopes, places that stay moist most of the time yet well drained. And you have to know what to look for. It is a bit like mushroom hunting. You have to get that good search image. So the ginseng in this photo is in that circle. So you can see how it easily blends in with the surrounding plants. And in Missouri, you can find it mainly in the shaded green area. We are on the western edge of ginseng's range, so it is sporadically found in the white counties too, but for the most part in Missouri, you would most likely find it in the green area, and particularly in the most rugged portions of the Ozarks. So Shannon, Iron, Reynolds County, where you really get into the deep hills and hollers of the Ozarks where you have more shade and more habitat is where we find most of our ginseng populations. And we do regulate ginseng. The Conservation Department has regulated ginseng harvest since 1984, and that is due to a international agreement referred to as CITES. CITES stands for the Convention of International Trade of Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora, which is quite the mouthful. Basically, it's an international agreement to protect species that are of particular risk to extinction due to international trade. So these are species that have value overseas, they are internationally traded, and we're worried about them becoming extinct just because of that. So other species in Missouri that we do have protected under CITES include bobcat and otter. Like bobcat and otter, ginseng is allowed to be internationally traded, but only under certain restrictions. So restrictions for ginseng include that all plants do have to be acquired legally, meaning that the states have to regulate the harvest of ginseng, and then that we also have to show that that harvest is sustainable. So every year, the Conservation Department reports to the Fish and Wildlife Service that Missouri is continuing to regulate the harvest of ginseng, and also we show how much ginseng is harvested from the state, and they determine if that harvest is sustainable, and that's done on an annual basis. If Missouri were ever to fail to regulate the harvest of ginseng, or if we were fail to show that we have a sustainable harvest, then international trade of ginseng from Missouri would be restricted, and therefore no ginseng from Missouri could leave the United States, and that would mean that those roots would be worthless. So you can really see to the industry, it is very, very important that the Conservation Department does continue to regulate ginseng harvest and continue to show that we have a sustainable harvest. To this day, ginseng is a very unique plant regarding regulations. There's many other botanicals that are commercially gathered on private property, and those botanicals are considered the property of the landowner. So they can harvest as much of that plant whenever they want, as long as you have the permission of the landowner to do so. But ginseng is different because of the CITES regulation. We regulate the harvest of ginseng even on private property, which makes it a very unique situation. So when we look at the harvest of ginseng, we do see some concerning issues. This bar chart shows the total amount of ginseng that's been harvested since 1995, each year, the total annual amount harvested. And you can see the declining trend in the last 25 years, and that's despite the increase in value of ginseng, which is depicted there by the blue line. So our concern is that it's being overharvested, but we don't know for sure if that is the case. We keep very little track of how many people are harvesting ginseng, and so we really don't know. It could be just simply that we have fewer people harvesting ginseng now than we did 25 years ago, and that's why our numbers are declining. We could also have issues with landowner changes where we have more absentee landowners these days, and they're less likely perhaps to allow ginseng to be harvested on their property. It could also be a decline due to habitat loss, because not because of overharvest, but because there's more logging these days. It's harder to find the habitat for them. So we're not quite sure what the reason is of this decline. The main concern is that it's being overharvested. But again, we do need more information. We need to know how many people are harvesting ginseng, and we need to be able to directly communicate with those people harvesting ginseng to really be able to determine what these numbers actually mean. And there was also a recent investigation, a federal investigation, that highlighted some concerns regarding ginseng commerce, the buying and selling of ginseng. That investigation was referred to as Operation Cash Crop. It involved the Fish and Wildlife Service and then the states of Missouri, Arkansas, and Illinois. And really showed some concerns that what they were looking at is what ginseng was being purchased and where it was being sold to, and then how those records were being recorded and kept. This bar chart shows a total amount of ginseng purchased by Missouri dealers each year since 1995. The blue portions of those bars indicate how much ginseng was purchased outside of Missouri. And then the orange portions of those bars is how much ginseng had actually originated from Missouri. So Missouri harvested ginseng purchased by Missouri dealers. So you can see by the chart that it is a very, very small portion of ginseng that is purchased by Missouri dealers actually originates from the state. By far, most of the ginseng is coming in from outside the state. So during that investigation, they did look at where those ginseng purchases were coming from. This map shows the location of ginseng dealers in the state. We usually have about 15 dealers, give or take a few, so not very many dealers to communicate with. And their locations are shown by the green dots. Those blue dots in that map indicate where that ginseng was being purchased from by Missouri dealers. So a lot of different states in the range of ginseng. Like I said, we are on the western edge of ginseng's range. We wouldn't expect anything purchased west of Missouri. And then this map shows the locations in red where the ginseng was sold to. So what dealers will do is sell to larger dealers, and those larger dealers sell overseas. But the real markup is when you can sell direct overseas. So this map shows the direct overseas sales of ginseng from Missouri ginseng dealers, those 15 dealers. And so during their investigation, which was from 2010 to 2013, that's a 4-year period, they looked at bank records to see how much value ginseng was being sold overseas. Almost $350,000 was sold to Taiwan during that time frame. There was almost $1.5 million sold to Singapore, and then over $5 million sold to Hong Kong. What the investigation found that as much as this ginseng was either harvested illegally or it was purchased illegally, and it was concealed under falsifying records. So it really highlighted the need for greater oversight, not only for ginseng that's been harvested in Missouri, but ginseng that's been harvested throughout the United States. We've also found that it has become an issue with prosecuting violations not to have a paid permit structure set up. Currently, we require a registration of ginseng dealers. They have to tell us what their name is and their address, and then we know to get records from them of how much ginseng they're buying and selling so we can report to the Fish and Wildlife Service. Without an actual permit system set up, when there is a violation, it becomes a lesser crime than if there was a paid permit system set up. So it becomes much more difficult to prosecute those cases, which is what came about in this investigation. We also have issues with that on the harvest side. So if someone is caught harvesting ginseng out of season or on conservation land where it's not allowed, because we do not have a paid permit system set up to harvest, it becomes more difficult to successfully prosecute those violations when they do come up. Whenever someone comes to court, they end up not getting in much trouble over it. They just kind of repeat that behavior, and it encourages it. So we would like to look at considering a harvest permit structure and a dealer permit structure. We have notified and we've sought input from a variety of different stakeholders. We've contacted the dealers in Missouri. We've also contacted our ginseng harvesters, although indirectly through our dealers since we don't know who they are. We contact the dealers to ask them to send survey cards and so we can get their feedback. We also shared some of this information at a booth at the recent Partners Roundtable meeting, also distributed some surveys there. I've spoken with various botanical societies and organizations and also reached out at community events, particularly in that heart of the Ozarks region where we have the most people harvesting ginseng in that area. So although there is no formal action required today, I wanted to present this information and maybe answer any questions you might have. What we are planning to do is approach the Regulations Committee in 2020 with a variety of different proposals we feel will better help enforce our ginseng regulations. One of those would be a $20 resident harvest permit fee, or a resident harvest permit, and then a $150 non-resident harvest permit for ginseng. This would provide greater accountability for the ginseng harvesters. It would also allow us to know how many people are harvesting ginseng and how we can communicate directly with them to gather information to better interpret our data, showing if we do have a sustainable harvest or not. And as well as enforcing our regulations, being able to more successfully prosecute violations when they do come up. We'd also like to look at the consistency of regulating wild ginseng versus propagated from the wild. So what people do is plant seed in the woods and then leave it alone for 10 years or so and don't take care of it, don't fertilize it, don't water it, just let it grow. It basically is a wild ginseng plant, although not technically because they planted that plant there. Currently, we just regulate the harvest of wild ginseng. So what becomes an issue is whenever someone claims that it's woods grown or wild simulated, which is what they've done is propagated it in the wild. It is virtually impossible to know the difference between the two. So because of that similarity, so that we can better regulate our wild harvested ginseng, we would like to be consistent on the wild and propagated from the wild ginseng. We'd also like to look at a $200 ginseng dealer permit fee. Again, that would be it would be a permit structure that would allow for more successful prosecution and better enforcement of our current regulations. And looking at dealer sales that have to be certified root. So what certifying root would mean is that there would be a tracking number associated with that batch of ginseng. Currently, that's set up for every time ginseng leaves the state, it has to be certified anyway. But what we come across with dealers is dealers selling to other dealers, and it leads into double counting in our system. We have no way to track that batch of ginseng. So we would like to have a requirement or consider a requirement for dealers to have that certification there. And because that certification does require an agent visit, time for the agent to count out those roots and weigh those roots, we'd like to consider a $25 minimum fee per certification. So these are some, again, just recommendations that we're going to be talking about in the upcoming year. We feel that they will help enforce our regulations currently. And importantly, too, to mention, to better ensure the future of the ginseng industry in Missouri so that Missouri harvested ginseng can continue to be internationally traded, which is very important, I'm sure, to everyone that's harvesting or selling ginseng. That is all I have for you today. If I would love to entertain any questions if you have them. Yes.
Melissa, thank you. Commissioners?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask a couple of questions. The stakeholder involvement, you know, and asking questions, you know, the stakeholder that interests me the most is the private landowner.
Mm-hmm, yep.
You know, I get real protective of what I can do on my private land. And when I see things like that, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, we're gonna have a permit system next for me to harvest my timber. You know, it's kind of my business what I do on it.
Yep.
And you always find new things for me to occupy my mind, obviously. But, I mean, I'm very strong on private landowner rights, and that really gets on my radar really quick.
Yep.
And
And it's common, that's the most common response I hear from people. Well, it's my private property, especially when you get into the woods grown ginseng, well, I planted that. You know, my dad planted that 15 years ago. You're going to tell me I have to wait till September 1st to dig it up. And it is truly the CITES requirement. I mean, we don't have to regulate ginseng. If we don't, then you can't export it internationally. So, I mean, you know, that's kind of the other option.
yeah, and the
without
international part
CITES.
of that is very interesting, you know, just that aspect of it throws in, because when you said, you know, the dealers, most of them are coming from out of state, I think that's probably being manipulated a little bit. That's probably not 100%.
And that's what
true.
they've recorded.
I
So
understand
that's all
that,
we know.
but, you know, I think as a commission, we really need to look at the impact of infringing on the rights of a private landowner when we're looking at this, because that's a really big step, because it kind of opens up a door for other things that could very easily get entertained.
Any other questions, comments? Melissa, thank you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Good
All right, Merry
presentation.
Thank you and good morning, Chairman, members of the Commission, Director Pauly. I'll be presenting item 7 on your agenda, the fiscal year 2020 financial summary through October of 2019. The financial summary report has been provided in your advanced materials. And I'll be providing a variance between the budget and the previous year. First, please turn your attention to the revenue trends found on page 4 of the report. Total revenues in FY20 through October 2019 were 0.4% higher than fiscal year 19 through October of 2018 and 2.6% below expectations at this point for the fiscal year. Conservation sales tax receipts were 3.7% above the same time period for fiscal year 19 and 1.5% above expectations. As of November, sales tax revenues were 3.8% above fiscal year 19, and as of yesterday, sales tax revenues were 5.2% above fiscal year 19. So a strong growth in sales tax at the current time. Permit revenues were 11.5% higher than this point in the previous year and 10.7% above expectations. Number of monetary hunting and fishing permits sold through fiscal year 2020 through October were 30,201 higher than the previous year. Federal reimbursements were 15.7% lower than this time last year and 22% below expectations. And this really accounts for the total revenues being slightly below expectations. Claims for Pittman-Robertson grants have been delayed compared to fiscal year 19, and we expect these reimbursements from the Pittman-Robertson grants to stabilize in January of 2020. Other revenue sources for the first 4 months of fiscal year 20 were 14.9% lower than this point in the last fiscal year and 18.4% below expectations. Lower number of timber sales occurring in fiscal year 20 compared to fiscal year 19 really account for this reduction in revenues. If there aren't any questions on revenues, I'll turn your attention to the expenditure variances. Starting on page 5, total operating expenditures for the first 4 months of fiscal year 20 were 3.5% lower than the first 4 months of fiscal year 19 and 7.3% below expectations. Operating expenditures include personal services, expenses, and equipment purchases. Personal service disbursements were 1.2% higher than the previous fiscal year and 5.4% lower than expected through October of 2019. Expenses were 0.8% higher than at this point in the last fiscal year and 3% above expectations. Equipment disbursements were 72.4% lower than the first 4 months of fiscal year 19 and 74.4% below expectations. Fleet and heavy equipment replacement were received much earlier in the fiscal year last year, and we expect this to turn around as the fiscal year goes on. Total capital disbursements were 190.8% higher than the previous fiscal year through October and 20.3% below the budget amount at this point in the fiscal year. As the director mentioned in her comments in the beginning, construction operations were stunted in fiscal year 19, mainly due to weather-related and flood issues. Total disbursements for fiscal year 20 through October were 4.8% higher than the same point in fiscal year 19 and 9.1% below expectations. This concludes my remarks on the October 2019 financial summary.
Questions, commissioners?
Andrew, any surprises here at all for you?
I think that the only surprise really is the sustained growth of sales tax.
5% is where it is now, you mentioned.
5.2%
Okay, and
yesterday.
question is, will that sustain, is what you're mentioning?
I wish I knew that.
Yeah, okay.
I don't suspect, but would hope that it would.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barry?
No
Questions?
questions.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Batson, Warren, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Pauly. We have an action item that is not on your agenda. We thought about taking it up under other business, but I think we've decided we would take it up now, which is a recommendation for approval to name 3 tracts in Boone County that were recently acquired through partial donation from Henry J. Waters III and Vicki S. Russell, the Henry J. Waters III and Vicki S. Russell unit of the Three Creeks Conservation Area, with a working name of the Waters-Russell Unit.
Do I have a motion to change the name?
So moved.
Do we have any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
carries. Very good move. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Did you at least think about me?
Always. So I'll move on to the next agenda item, which is a summary and an overview of the Missouri Department of Conservation's Land Conservation Strategy. In 2017, the Conservation Commission approved a Missouri Department of Conservation Land Conservation Strategy. The LCS, as we call it, provides a framework for prioritizing opportunities for MDC's support of land acquisition, conservation easements, lease agreements, cooperative agreements, grants, public access programs, and incentive programs. The goal of the LCS is to enhance our conservation efforts in priority geographies, enhance our conservation of imperiled species and habitats, expand existing conservation and close-in holdings to maximize our resource management efforts, and to increase citizen access to the outdoors near where they live. As part of MDC's strategic focus to connect people with nature, the LCS serves Outcome 2.1 by focusing our acquisitions, disposals, and resource protections with prioritized criteria and program development. Currently, the Conservation Commission manages 1,217 conservation areas, totaling 1,017,000 acres, and of that million acres, we have 812,800 acres that are owned fee simple, and 204,100 acres that are managed through lease agreements. Of our fee simple holdings, 768,800 acres were acquired through purchase, and 43,900 acres were acquired through donation. So, as you all have kind of seen in executive, I do have a bit of passion probably for land conservation and holding land in public trust. It is important to me on a very personal level, and so if you'll give me just a few minutes to kind of give you some of the background of why that is. I was blessed as a child not to have access to just one, but 2 family farms. Both my mother and my father had fathers who had farms, 200-acre cattle and small grain farms that were passed down to them by their fathers. And so my conservation ethic, you know, my thoughts and dreams and the adventures that I ever thought about having started, you know, right here in central Missouri on 2 farms that we love dearly. The fate of those 2 farms, however, has been very different. My dad's farm remains in our family. With him as the owner today, and he and my brother have taken the actions necessary to ensure that that farm will be in our family at least for another generation. So we know that we'll have 4 generations of Bearhorst owning that farm, at least probably to the end of my lifetime. However, upon my grandparents' death, my mother's family chose to sell their family farm. So the reality of losing land loved is very real to me. That's one perspective. The second perspective I have is a little bit as a mother, because even though we still have a family farm, that farm is kind of I will call it a high production. This is a picture of our farm in Osage County that's still in our family. It's a little bit of a high production cattle ranch, even on the hills above the Osage River. So, you know, free ranging kids in bull pastures and paddocks where skittish cows and calves are, grazing is not necessarily something that's always acceptable. So, as I was trying to expose my children to the outdoors and to give them an opportunity for outdoor adventures, when they were really little, we used city parks and urban trails. As they got a little older, I could trust them to be on scenic overlooks off of trails on conservation areas. And then much to their chagrin, as they got older, they'd end up in our managed dove fields on conservation areas that we manage through other landowner partners, or even out west on trails that they insisted I was trying to kill them on. So anyway, we've gotten kind of the full breadth of the experience of being able to have opportunities on private land, but I understand very well how those opportunities can change over time. I will also say I spent 10 years as a forester working with private landowners, or PLC, private land conservationists working with private landowners. And based on the story that I've told here, the experience that I had in working with and trying to implement conservation practices, or even through our new MORAP program, access practices, as land changes hands, those things do not sustain time and over time. So I have a real sense of understanding that when we have the opportunity to protect habitats or access for folks and hold those land in the public trust, society and citizens benefit. Many of our citizens benefit by that. So that's some of my background and why I am very passionate about this topic. However, then there's reality. And the land conservation strategy was developed at a time when MDC and the Commission were working to better understand the scope and magnitude of our capitals portfolio and ensure we remained relevant with citizens while conserving our state's precious wildlife and habitat resources, and really strategically focus taxpayer dollars related to land and infrastructure, including land disposals, which this Commission has wholeheartedly supported. So development of the LCS and its approval followed a review of the Commission's past capital expenditures, an assessment of our current conservation area placement, a review of the total public land portfolio in Missouri, including the public trust lands owned and managed by our partners. We also had a discussion of how best to achieve conservation priorities in the best of our comprehensive conservation strategy geographies, and how well all of our public trust lands were positioned in relation to those CCS geographies. With a renewed focus on providing outdoor recreation opportunities near where our citizens live, the LCS development team assessed current and projected housing density and population data. Key to this assessment was consideration of projected population growth in the near-term future and the acceptance that conservation's future relevancy in Missouri with our citizens was going to rely on our being accessible to them where they are. So after several months of thoughtful discussions and considerable deliberation, the Commission approved the land conservation strategy and provided guidance on the relative importance of the key strategies that were outlined in that plan. The prioritized strategies are listed here, and you have all of those in your read-ahead materials. Staff have subsequently worked to develop criteria and a scoring system for use as we consider land conservation opportunities. And again, opportunities do not solely include land acquisition, although that is one. When we consider donations, we apply the criteria. As we are trying to find a new way to support partners through the development and protection through conservation easements, lease agreements, cooperative agreements, grants, public access programs, and incentive programs, we are using the criteria that were established through the guidance that was provided by the Commission at that time. So I'm going to run you through those criteria today as quickly as I can. And again, you all have the full document, and as you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So we start with the very first of the guidelines that were provided. So when considering how best to increase outdoor recreation opportunities in major metropolitan areas and in those counties where most Missouri residents reside, or citizens reside, a simple criterion based on population can be used. So one of the first things staff consider when assessing a land conservation opportunity is whether or not that opportunity falls within one of our 15 most populated counties. Prior to the development of the LCS, our most urban regions were also asked to consider and report which conservation areas were best suited to expansion for the purpose of increasing citizen access in their region. And so Kansas City, St. Louis, Southwest, and Central Region all provided their input for an Urban Lands Initiative project. So, whether the land conservation opportunity contributes to the Urban Lands Initiative is the second criterion used to assess potential for increasing outdoor recreation opportunities in major metropolitan areas. The second directive was aimed at ensuring all citizens have recreation opportunities near where they live. Our intention since we established the land conservation strategy was to try to work closely with our recreation and public trust land partners to do a gap analysis, to understand where people are, how far they're willing to drive, and what opportunities are currently available, believing that the Department of Conservation, we already work with lots of partners, we're all kind of aligned, many of us are aligned in those priorities, so can we do a gap analysis that helps us understand where we are missing opportunity for folks? However, we've not been able to complete that analysis, and so for this particular criteria, for the time being, we do just fall back on our 15 most populated counties. With our conservation partners like the Fish and Wildlife Service, with the Forest Service, DNR, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, we hold a little less than 7% of Missouri's land in public trust. There is concern that this footprint is not adequate to sustain fish and wildlife resources for all future generations, and a recognition that a thoughtful and strategic approach to land conservation communicated amongst all partners will result in our satisfying the citizens' desire to maintain our conservation legacy and ensure we are satisfying that third directive, which is to maintain support and tools for partner projects that advance the land conservation strategy. Not only have we committed to sharing our strategy with our partners, we will assess whether the opportunity is adjacent to other publicly owned or otherwise permanently protected conservation or public trust lands. And also whether or not it falls within a priority area of a potential partner agency, municipality, or not-for-profit organization. And staff at the time of the development of the LCS were challenged to find new and innovative ways to achieve the land conservation strategy. So with the Commission's approval to move away from a very strict capitals budget that was focused on construction and land acquisition, we actually, I think 2 fiscal years ago, moved to a land conservation and partnerships budget that has given the department an opportunity to provide financial assistance through grants to conservation and recreation partners, land trusts, and local governments, so they may acquire real estate or donated conservation easements, especially in high conservation priority areas or in areas where there's great recreation value for folks. And our partners are ecstatic about this opportunity. And if you think about our history with community assistance programs, so all the fishing lakes that we've supported through partners, this is just a little farther extension of that, thinking about relevancy and how citizens want to recreate today, and trying to bridge that gap for us between, strictly hunting and fishing opportunity, but then also the recreation opportunities that folks are looking for today. So with that new grant program, folks are certainly going to kind of be a little more, I think, open to helping us provide some of those opportunities. Since we can provide more tools to organizations like those listed here, with whom we've had a long tradition of land conservation collaboration, the Land Conservation and Partnerships grants will help us have probably greater emphasis and more opportunity to also support the projects and priorities of folks with an urban recreation or more of a quality of life focus, like some of those that I've listed here. Our work continues to develop a revised comprehensive conservation strategy. However, our 8 priority geographies that represent the department's best opportunities to sustain fish, forest, and wildlife into the future were approved by the Commission in 2015. these priority geographies provide a foundation for focusing most of our land conservation investments and mitigating a tendency for us to invest in random acts of conservation, as we call them, just all over the state with kind of a shotgun approach, that do not necessarily result in a land conservation footprint that will satisfy long-term habitat and species needs. While we work extensively with private landowners in the priority geographies, most of our land conservation and management investments do occur on public trust lands. So assessing an opportunity based on its ability to help us achieve the fourth directive, which is to increase efforts in priority geographies, requires us to only consider whether or not the opportunity presented falls within the boundary of one of our comprehensive conservation strategy geographies. And this is a criterion you'll see a little later in the presentation that we weight based on the importance of that CCS geography for several different reasons. Like I said, I will share an actual example of the scoring sheet a little later. To expand efforts for imperiled species and habitats, staff in the field who are most knowledgeable about our species and natural communities of conservation concern assess each opportunity for its ability to increase conservation of imperiled species and habitats, either through a review of our Missouri Species and Communities of Conservation Concern checklist or our natural heritage database, and through field visits, because very often when we are reviewing these land conservation opportunities, staff will uncover previously unknown occurrences of species of conservation concern or habitats that we simply didn't know about because we hadn't had an opportunity to visit the property. With over 1,200 conservation areas whose acquisitions have largely been based on many of the things we've already talked about, though not always, you can imagine that we have a few instances where management activities are challenged by inholdings, and you would recognize too that critical habitats and species do not recognize boundaries, and so they occur over a landscape. And so when we have the opportunity to take a look at whether or not folding this opportunity into some of the lands we already hold, if it helps streamline our management or give us an opportunity to expand management of some of these critical habitats and species, we certainly want to continue to do that. And so we have a criterion established to help us assess that as well. So when it came to the operational implementation of a land conservation strategy, we knew we needed a transparent way to communicate to citizens, legislators, partners, staff, and the commission about how decisions regarding land conservation opportunities were being made. And that's why we engaged in a process to identify the criteria that I've run through here today and developed a score sheet that is currently used to assess our land acquisition proposals. And as you can see, several of those criteria are weighted. An example would be the very first one. So when staff are reviewing a land offer for its suitability to the first directive, they score it higher if it is adjacent to one of those areas that were identified through that Urban Lands Initiative. Gets a little higher score if it's adjacent to, not quite as high a score if it's a standalone opportunity. In November, we did make our first call for proposals for a new Land Conservation and Partnerships grant program. One of the grant opportunities through this program is the Land Conservation Partnerships Grant Conservation Easement Assistance Program, which provides financial assistance to land trusts and local governments for acquiring donated easements on privately owned land having especially high conservation or recreation value. The scoring sheet you see here was shared with partners so they could see our criteria for themselves as they considered project proposals. Many of the criteria here are like those that we use for land acquisition, but several are more specific to the quality and accessibility of the project being proposed. So overall, I say, I mean this sincerely when I say that the land conservation strategy is serving the citizens and the department very well. 2 years of communication about the plan with partners, with the commission, and the subsequent implementation has resulted in a shift in how staff and partners consider land conservation opportunities. It has also helped us lean our real estate acquisition process. It's helped us take a more holistic approach to considering total cost of ownership when we are considering acquisitions or grant support. It's helped us more holistic, given us a better focus on land conservation efforts that both maximize fish, forest, and wildlife restoration and increasing citizen access. The LCS document itself and the commission direction for prioritizing strategies proved to be valuable guidance to both staff and administration as they work to sort through the many opportunities presented to the department. Each year, on the land acquisition side alone, we see somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 willing land offers to the department. And so, as the commission knows, very few of those make it into a pipeline for your consideration. So having these criteria and everyone being on the same page about how we need to prioritize these opportunities has been incredibly helpful. So I would say the commission's continued development of an understanding and their support for the LCS would be greatly appreciated. And at this point, I'd be happy to answer any of the questions that you might have about that strategy or comments that you would have about how we could improve and continue to move forward.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any
Thank you.
questions? Please, Steve.
Jennifer, as you know, this is a topic that I'm very interested in, and I think we both are, which is going to be fun to work together. You know, one of the questions that I have, and I've really spent some time looking at some conservation areas of how they're managed, because, you know, the total cost of ownership that's of interest, and then, you know, what's happening with them after their own. And I spent some time in Phelps County looking at them, and something that I learned that I had actually thought incorrectly is you look at the land, and the sign for DNR land and the sign for MDC land looks very similar, and I just thought they were all one and the same.
Oh,
Okay, and I think a lot of the public does.
they absolutely do. You are not mistaken.
Well, what I was very happy to see, I spent some time down on Mill Creek looking at that, and it's checkerboarded down through there. And Nick and I spent some time, and the work that's being done on the MDC land is excellent. You know, the
Thank you.
autumn alumn's being handled well, there's warm season grasses being handled, and it sits right next door to DNR land it hasn't been touched. I mean,
They take a different approach to land management. They definitely do.
yeah, and so I think one thing that we would need to be very astute in educating the public of what's ours and what's not. And then not only that, but, you know, the question I had was, do we work with DNR on some of their land? I mean, it would be, I mean, the land was right there adjacent to each other. It's you know, it'd be so nice if, I mean, the equipment's already there to do things, and, you know, our objective is to, and for me personally, is a high quality, you know, habitat environment for whatever species we're trying to promote. You know, whether it's, you know, of course I like to hunt fish, so I'm interested in quail and that sort of thing. But that was very enlightening to me when I looked at that, you know, with the increased knowledge that you've helped me with. And, you know, I think it's something we really need to look at when we're looking at these lands. I think it'd be very helpful just from a public perception, rural perception, that sort of thing.
Point well taken. I would like to say, I think that DNR and state parks, because of the recreation focus that they have, I think a lot of times their resources get probably pulled more toward, you know, the campgrounds and the trails and those kinds of things, and they are not always quite as focused on habitat management, where we've had the benefit of a long, you know, kind of a long-standing tradition of having a real focus on the land management piece, and a lot of times from, again, the fish, forest, and wildlife perspective, to try and make that as, you know, as those habitats as close to perfect as our staff can figure out how to make them at any given time. But there are many, many instances where we do manage collaboratively with all of those public land holding partners, not just DNR, but the Fish and Wildlife Service, definitely with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The best example I can think of for DNR off the top of my head is probably Hahatonka, where I know our staff work collaboratively with them for the natural community restoration projects that go on there and the extensive prescribed burning. So it probably is, with each property, it depends a little bit on, you know, where does it fall in terms of the kinds of habitats that we are trying to restore, and is it the appropriate place for the focus of the resources for both agencies?
Well, and, you know, and just kind of add to that, I mean, you know, the national forest that we have, you know, and then the DNR land and then our land, I mean, you know, that's in some extent, it's all public property.
It is.
So to speak. So, you know, looking at the big picture and management, I think is really important. I was down by Ava, and DNR owns a very large tract of land down there, and it's no hunting allowed. And I was just kind of like,
That's
what in the
standard.
world, you know?
That's standard.
And,
We,
so
there are a few state parks where we do work collaboratively with them to manage deer. So we have managed deer hunts on some of those state parks, but
just from a public perception, you know, and always being conscientious of the public perception of what we're doing. I think it's an area that working with the DNR might be very helpful. And it's not like we are. I'd like to learn more about it in the
Okay.
future.
I think Mike was gonna.
Commissioner, if I may, there is a natural areas committee in the state that is composed of most of the organizations that own land and public trust. And all of the work on those natural areas is done by the individual agency that holds it, but it goes through that committee to make sure that it meets the standards of the natural areas management. So in that regard, we work collaboratively with DNR, with Forest Service, with U.S. Fish and Wildlife on a large number of our most precious, so to speak, natural areas across the state to make sure that we maintain those in that state as examples of what those communities could actually look like. So we work collaboratively with all of those in those situations. So.
Very good.
The other question, MRAP, you didn't mention that, or maybe I've
I didn't in the presentation, just for the sake of time, but
Okay.
certainly it was called out in the land conservation strategy. Tried to use a lot of the same criteria as we're assessing opportunities for MRAP. So it's incorporated into the land conservation strategy, and I mentioned, you know, access programs, and the intention was, you know,
Is there any
because
particular part of the state that we see more landowner participation in that, or is it just kind of?
we have, and we can get you a map, but mostly it's, I think, northeast, primarily
Okay.
northeast Missouri,
Just curious.
our northeast region,
Thank you.
way north.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Just
thank you
north.
for the presentation, it's excellent, enjoyed it.
Good, great.
Jennifer, good presentation, and of course, we've talked about the matrix, which is good, and I know you put the criteria together, kind of how we get to these components, and then, of course, you've got your weighting commission. It kind of ties in a little bit to Steve's comment, too, and I know that I think 80-some% of the state is owned privately.
93%.
93%, okay.
93%.
So the other 7% is made up of all these other public agencies that you've talked about between MDC and DNR and the Corps of Engineers and U.S. Forest Service. Do we have acreage numbers for all those agencies?
Yes,
Could I
yes, sir.
have access to that?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Barry? No question. Thank you, Jennifer.
So before I leave the podium, I have to give a huge thank you to the folks who sit on the Realty Committee, the folks that support the members of the Realty Committee. The LCS strategy itself, the document, Audrey Beers had helped me quite a lot at the time when we were putting that together. So I'm not going to walk away from this podium with you all thinking that I did this by myself, because I did not. So thank you.
Aaron? Looks like you're up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I just wanted to provide a brief legislative update. We've all had the opportunity to meet Jake and welcome him on board, but also don't want to forget about Larissa Smith. She helps out quite a bit, and will be helping us this year at the Capitol as well. I'll be brief. I know everybody wants to get on the road, and I actually want to try to go quail hunting this afternoon, if with the commission's approval, of course. All right, you're all shaking your heads yes. Thank you for that opportunity. As you all know, we're coming up on the next legislative session. Legislative session will start January 8th. Pre-filing of bills started on December 2nd. We've been tracking those bills daily. I'll bring a couple bills to your attention that's in the briefing paper that I provided. House Bill 1292 related to feral hogs, sponsored by Representative Chris Dinkins. This bill would allow a landowner or a landowner's agent to use infrared or night vision without permission of a conservation agent. That would be in direct conflict with the regulation that you all passed today. Also, it would remove the language that would allow, that requires a hunter to have a deer permit or turkey permit during those prescribed seasons. I'm sure our agents in the front row would explain the difficulty that would create of having individuals out in the woods without a deer and turkey hunting permit creating that exception that, oh, I'm feral hog hunting, would be a real problem, and really allow a great opportunity for the poachers to expand on their opportunities. Also, legislation that we're tracking and working with the Conservation Federation related to the Share the Harvest program. Conservation Federation is wanting to expand that program beyond just the venison that's provided to food pantries to also include venison sticks. That requires a change in state statute to allow for that shelf-stable package to be given out, donated. 2 bills have been filed. House Bill 1711 by Representative Tim Rimley. He's the Conservation Committee Chair. And Senate Bill 662 by Senator Mike Bernskatter, who is the Senate Ag Chair. So we'll be tracking both of those bills. Also, we're working with the Nature Conservancy on prescribed fire insurance. Missouri is one of 5 states that does not offer up prescribed fire liability insurance to a contract burner. The reason is liability is not defined in state statute. By defining this in statute, we would simply be giving an insurance company the ability to hire or to offer that insurance to a contractor burner. We've had contract burners actually leave Missouri or stop offering that service simply because they cannot get liability insurance. So we'll be tracking that legislation during the legislative session. Also, House Joint Resolution 59, which is the constitutional right to hunt, fish, and trap, introduced by Representative Chris Dinkins. This would put in the Missouri Constitution the constitutional right to hunt, fish, and trap. It does nothing to recruit new hunters, provide new places for individuals to hunt or fish or to enjoy the outdoors. Does nothing to address invasive species or other challenges that tend to hinder individuals' ability to hunt and fish in the outdoors. What this bill does is attempts to put a square peg in a round hole. We have a commission with constitutional authority already that has served the state very well for over 80 years. So we would have concerns with the proposed legislation. Also, there is, as you know, with any constitutional amendment, you have to have quite a bit of money out there to get that across the finish line. And there's really no one out there pushing that legislation right now. Also, legislation that we'll be working on this year is related to our nature centers. As you know, our nature centers provide a wonderful opportunity for citizens to learn and enjoy about nature, especially our youth, our kids. And so of concern is potential for sex offenders to take advantage of those facilities. So we will be seeking legislation year that would prohibit certain sex offenders from being present at department nature centers and education centers. Both Jake and I have been working to secure both a House and Senate sponsor on that potential legislation, and we look forward to providing you an update at the January commission meeting. With that, commissioners, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Aaron? Steve? Mark?
No,
Barry?
Just a quick question, Aaron. Of course, most of these have the second day of December's date, which I know is the first opportunity to file the bills. Would you anticipate more to come as the month progresses?
Well, I would hope not, but yeah, I expect we'll see some additional legislation. In a given session, Commissioner, we'll track about 200 pieces of legislation. We'll complete about 400 fiscal reviews on what the fiscal impact is to the department. So yeah, every day, Jake, Larissa, and I are going through looking at those bills that have been pre-filed, filed during the session, and then actually how they move through the legislative process.
Well, I'd be interested in seeing them as they come further into the month.
Absolutely. In fact, during the session, we'll provide you a weekly update every Friday.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Aaron. Are there any other matters to come before the commission today? Madam Director, no questions? No questions or comments? Thank all of you for participating. We appreciate it. We appreciate the hard work that you do every single day for the citizens of this state. That's what we're here for, to take care of their assets, if you will. So Safe travels to all that may be traveling during the holidays. Merry Christmas to all of you. And all of the award winners, if you will, please go to the lobby. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.